Welcome to the 114th episode of the Supernatural Occurrence Studies Podcast.
So damn paranormal.
My name is Jason Knight, host of the show, and with me, as always, is
Oscar Spector,
producer extraordinaire and podcast co-host. Oscar, was that Lexi I heard in the background there?
I don't know. I mean, it could just be something I just spliced in there. You don't know.
Magic of editing.
Right.
Well, I think our patrons will see Lexi hovering in the background. Could she wave hello?
They want you to wave.
Hi. You can't see my hand. There you go.
No.
So we're doing something different for our beautiful Patreon subscribers. We're actually recording video as we're doing this podcast. So patrons could see our made-for-radio faces, and they'll get to see lovely Lexi in the background there.
Yes, they can.
Okay, cool. So join our Patreon. Oscar, what has been up in the past 2 weeks, my friend?
Yeah, it has been 2 weeks. Oh, yeah, because we did record last week, but that was a bonus. That's right.
Yes.
I was like, what? It hasn't been 2 weeks.
It's a nice plug for a Patreon bonus episode that we recorded.
I mean, you're going to get to it anyway. But yes, I'm saying it hasn't been literally 2 weeks. But yeah, what have I been doing? Well, I've been chilling with this girl a little bit here, a little bit there. I don't know if I mentioned the video project. I'm still ongoing with that.
Yeah, the stop motion project.
Yes. I know. I probably shouldn't be talking putting the cart before the horse until it's done. Maybe I should or something. But, and I'm not even close to halfway because what started off as a nice little project has now turned into a full-length short story that I'm going to have sound design and soundtrack.
Wow.
And all this stuff to it. And I'm just one person. So, but I might ask you for the one favor that a lot of filmmakers ask for their friends.
Oh, what is that?
That's to unwittingly participate in some small element and be the voice of one of my characters.
Yes. Definitely.
Yeah. So I have one strange request, and this should give you a little bit of a clue. Can you imitate Trump at all?
Oh my God. This is a villainous role, apparently.
Yes, it is. Quite is.
I would really have to. I try not to watch any of his stuff.
Yeah. No, I don't watch
television. So I would have to study. I would have to do a character study of King Trump.
That's okay. Can you do a villainous voice?
Yeah, see? Yeah.
No, that's just like Al Capone or a gangster.
Well, you put me on the spot. Is this what actors go through?
Well, in casting, they already know what they're going to go through. So
I will study for you.
Yeah,
I want to do it right.
This requires no money. It just requires a lot of time and effort. That's all it does. I mean, I have everything I need here. I have cameras. I have the technology to edit it. And I have the stuff to mix it with. I have the stuff to play with. I have my room is the only area I'm going to use to shoot it.
Okay.
So it just takes a lot of time and effort. So I'm doing basically a scene a week.
A scene a week.
Mm-hmm.
That's a long time for a single scene, I think, right?
Yeah. And I'm going to tell you right now, just looking around the room, because I have it all set up kind of in a way where it's already ready to shoot in a way. I have about 15 scenes.
Wow. So about 15 weeks, then plus your editing time.
Right. Not to mention transitions and little inserts as well. But yeah.
That's crazy. Good for you, man. See, the coronavirus got you creative and learning new things, trying new stuff.
Yeah. Lexi's been helping me with the artwork too.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Do you think, somewhere through the process we could put a sneak peek of it into the Patreon stuff we do?
Oh, that's funny. You asked me earlier today if there was something I could send you. Is that why you were asking to?
No, I really wanted to see what you were up to. It sounds so cool.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, once it's done, I would definitely I don't mind releasing it to the world, but it also I'm not a musician, so I'm using music that I'm taking from something. So it's not whatever. It's not legal. I'm using it, for, you know what I'm saying? Gotcha. But maybe it could be redone with free to use music, but that's not as much fun. Have you heard them? They're not. So, I don't know, but I can definitely send it to you and to other people independently. Of course, that's fine. I think.
Yeah, I would love to see it.
Because it's like one of those movie mashups that you see at the end of every year. People do mashups, that's all legally done. They'll just download those movies and make a nice mashup with illegal music too.
Yeah.
And then just show it to everyone. It's no big deal. They're not making money off it. As long as I'm not making money off it, I think it should be fine. But because I'm just making this project for me, just for me. And I guess for my friends too, so they can watch it. But yeah, I can send you something. I can send you something soon too, if you want, just something small.
Yeah, I just want to see the creation in process.
Yeah.
It could be neat.
Okay.
So you've been busy.
That's what I've been doing.
Yeah, it's spreading your creative wings.
How about you?
Shit. Nothing, man. Not up to anything. Just working and quarantining. That's it. Nothing too cool happened over this past 2 weeks-ish, whatever it is, week and a half. No raids in my neighborhood. No.
Oh, right. Is that house still quiet?
No. Apparently last Friday, we didn't even realize it. They raided the house again.
Wow.
Because someone in the house shot off a gun at a local gas station because he got into an argument or something. So they raided the house again. But they were really quiet this time. It was at night. And we learned about it through some neighbors.
Wow.
So, but I didn't see it. So no action and adventure on that front.
That's nuts.
But just dealing with headaches at work. Just, I'll just leave it at that because people at work listen to the show. So I'll just say headaches.
Yeah.
Put
That's
it politely.
It's okay.
Haven't been sleeping well. Just getting my ass kicked on sleep. I don't know why. Must be a lot of shit weighing on my mind.
It must be. It must be. But, you always bring it onto yourself. You just try to go with the flow a little more if you can. Whenever you can.
I try, man.
I don't.
I didn't think I was going to finish this episode.
Oh, really?
It just seemed like it would never end. Kind of like the month of March just would not end.
Yeah.
So I'm almost in a way glad to be putting this one to bed for now. We might have a few ideas for some bonus episodes we could say it now, right? Skinwalker Ranch.
Yes.
But it's good to put the main shows to bed because there's just so much you could write about this place. And so I think I was stressing about that too.
It really is, yeah.
Because we always want to deliver a good product.
Yeah.
Speaking of delivering a good product, Oscar, I think I shared with you this email that we received at contact@chicagospodcast.com.
Mm-hmm.
This is for a gentleman named Victor. I'll leave his last name off of it. But I always say, you send us emails, leave us voice messages, send us a text message. We'll read them and play them on the show. So
yes,
I want to read this one. It's a fantastic email. This is exactly why we do this show. But Victor says, hi. Sorry.
Did you catch yourself?
I did. I messed up. Victor
What?
says, how y'all doing?
Okay.
I'm a longtime listener of the show, and I got to say, y'all are the best part of my Mondays. Well, every other Monday. Anyway, your episode, the Chicago 51, was extremely informative. See, I reside in Vienna, Virginia, a suburb 15 minutes outside Washington, D.C. My roots are actually in Chicago's South Side. My father was born in Inglewood, and I was raised in Roseland. Shout out to the Wild 100s. That's what they call the Roseland neighborhood, the Wild 100s. So best believe this particular episode hit a lot closer to home. I love the amount of research and effort that went into this. Growing up, I constantly heard about the injustice or the lack of effort of police officials in the South Side. The mystery behind a string of murders shouldn't come as a surprise, but it honestly does. 51 women over a course of several years with the same MO. Flat out crazy. I pray to God the justice system brings closure to the families of these victims and catch the killer or killers. I'm all of a sudden captivated by more mysteries the South Side could possibly be hiding. I'm sorry, Victor. I was wondering, could you guys do more stories that take place in the South Side? Man, that would be really awesome, especially more paranormal type stories. I grew up near Pullman, and I always thought that the Pullman area was a little spooky. Hell, Candyman was actually added a supernatural element to Cabrini Green. My dad would drive by there to scare me because he thought it was funny. I wasn't necessarily scared of the gangs. I was more scared of Candyman coming to get me. Anyway, you guys are amazing. Keep up the good work. I love what you guys do. Don't ever stop. I'm looking forward to more and more stories. Take care and be safe. Your friend, Victor.
And we ain't going to stop either.
No, Victor, thank you so much for the email. Sorry if I botched it up a few areas there, but
No.
We love you, man. We're going to try to get into some Southside stories. I know of a few, but I know there's more. So that's something we can definitely put on the agenda for future episodes. So
really quick, can I give you a story that just reminded me of from his email?
Yeah, please.
You can hear me okay, right? I think hold on.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, because I lowered the audio was very high for me for the headphones, but I want to make sure that you can hear me fine still here.
Oh, yes.
The story is that a long time ago, this is when I was in, this is a little after film school, I believe, a little after film school, a lot of people have a lot of filmmakers, they kind of, they more or less get together. They still, with the ones that like each other and to do projects and stuff. I was helping very lightly. I was like a PA essentially. I was just helping with the lighting and stuff like that. And this one project in the South Side and in the old Pullman mansion estate. I don't know if you know who Pullman used to be or
I know the name. I would have to.
Yeah, there's a historical society owned whatever building that used to be, I guess, either his house or where they operated, and he was in charge of a lot of the railroad work done in Chicago, among other places too.
Okay.
And he had now I'm sure I'm fucking up a lot of details. Please forgive me. It's been so long. I didn't read a book on it. I was just there and I was shooting a short film about the Pullman stuff actually. And the short story was actually really good. Too bad I never seen a copy. I never seen the full finished version of it, but I worked on it. And whatchamacallit, supposedly what they had was that he had his own currency for his coworkers, and which depended on the coworkers to not only live on the work, but also you can imagine that a currency owned by the owner of their employer or whatever, it provides it's basically a gray area between slavery and freedom,
It's complete bullshit.
Yeah, it's complete bullshit. Yeah, I mean, many places have done it before. Usually mining companies have done this in the past and things like that. So this was a railroad, but still applies. I mean, we have a lot of bad history with workers, honestly, in this country, and this is one of them. And it was really fucked up. And you know what? I was in that house a lot for 12 hours a day or something until they had to kick us out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I remember feeling some weirdness for that place too, because it's a historical preserve, so it looked just like it was last time, so nothing was changed in it.
Mm-hmm.
Just add a few computers and that's it. But yeah, it was a freaky place. So,
did you see anything there, or
no? I didn't see anything.
Okay.
No, I didn't see it. It was just a vibe. I'm sure going back there now, knowing what I know or feeling what I felt, might feel different. But you never know.
So, Victor, there you go. The old Pullman mansion possibly haunted.
Yeah. And I could be wrong. Maybe it's not his mansion, but I know it involves his organization. I just don't remember how exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we can make a trip there one day and do some interviews or something.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
I mean, if I let a bunch of, college kids do a short film there, maybe they'll let us in.
Oh, there you go.
Right?
We could go in as documentary filmmakers.
Yes. No. But I'm saying it'll be easier for us to go in, right?
I see. I got you.
Because we have 50 people there working on lights and fucking demolishing things. So,
wow. You guys don't need this wall here, right?
Yeah. No, I'm just saying, 50 people, whatever. It's gonna bring some bad stuff eventually.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you for the email, listeners. Send us your own email, comments, criticisms, otherwise. contact@chicagoghostpodcast.com. And while we're at it, let's talk about our website, chicagoghostpodcast.com. From our website, you get to all of our social accounts, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. We got a lot of cool stuff up on YouTube. And, of course, our Patreon account, our Patreon page. For just $5 a month, you could have access through Patreon to exclusive podcast episodes that will not appear in our normal podcast feed. It's our way of saying thank you to our patrons. Thank you for your support. Thank you for believing in us. Oscar mentioned earlier in the week, we did record a Patreon episode that was really cool. It had to do with some video footage a listener sent to us that I personally think shows an extraterrestrial at a person's home, captured on Arlo video cameras in April. So we really dissected that video. We played that video. patrons got to see it. So what are you waiting for? Go to patreon.com/Supernatural Occurrence Studies Podcast, or just click the Patreon icon on chicagoghostpodcast.com and it'll take you right to us. You could also call the show or text us, Chicago area code 872-529-0767. That's 872-529-0767. Leave us a message.
Isn't that from the same Kentucky small town where Quaker Oats company started? I think
Quaker Oats.
I think it's a Quaker Oats country, isn't it? It's Quaker Oat country.
Quaker country?
I mean, it's not really far. It's not too close to Chicago. I don't entirely understand why you're lying to our...
I'm always fronting on that phone number. No, I promise you that it's a Chicago area code. It's the Gold Coast. So unless Quakers live in the Gold Coast...
Yeah, no, it's not. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
So listeners, reach out and we'll read your comments on the show. Should we take a quick break and show maybe our patrons something cool from our office?
Oh, I see. That's how we do it.
Yeah. So when we go to break and normal podcast feed listeners get some music and commercials, for our Patreon subscribers, we show them something cool, unique, different, odd from our recording spaces, and we talk about it. So what do you say we do that now?
Let's do it now.
Listeners, welcome back to the show. Well, the lights are turned down low. The ceremonial candle is lit. And the drinks are flowing.
The fuck, are you drunk?
I can't get used to this background.
Okay.
Let's start this show. So this is a part 2, right, Oscar? This is part 2. In the last episode, we named the show Utah's Paranormal Funland.
Yeah.
And we avoided, naming the actual topic of the episode until the very end of the show. So this is a second in a 2-part series. You got to go back and listen to Supernatural Occurrence Studies Podcast episode 113, Utah's Paranormal Funland. Because that episode was actually about Skinwalker Ranch, even though we didn't name the episode Skinwalker Ranch. In episode 113, we covered a number of topics concerning our paranormal funland without actually revealing that we were talking about Skinwalker Ranch until the very end of the episode. We kind of tried to create this atmosphere of mystery around what the topic of the show really was. So instead of talking about Skinwalker Ranch, we talked about everything else surrounding the ranch. We shared information regarding the history of the Uinta Basin, the section of northeast Utah where Skinwalker Ranch is located. We talked about the area's Native American history, specifically the Ute and the Navajo, and how the Navajo's treatment by the Ute ultimately gave rise to a terrible curse, the Navajo curse of the Skinwalker. Of course, we got into what a Skinwalker is, what it looks like, its traits, how it behaves, and how the curse of the Skinwalker may have added fuel to the paranormal fire that has been smoldering in the Uinta Basin for centuries. From there, we investigated Skinwalker Ranch's chain of ownership, going all the way back to the early 1900s, and teased a story or two about strange events ranch owners have experienced over the years. We talked about the Myers family, the Sherman family, Terry and Gwen Sherman, the billionaire Robert Bigelow, a mysterious shell company called Adamantium Holdings, and of course, Skinwalker Ranch's newest owner, another incredibly wealthy individual named Brandon Fugel. And believe me, when we talked about ranch ownership, we got into some really fun territory. Everything from a real-world adamantium-like material called hafnium to gold to the Anunnaki, secret government programs, black budget money, UFO disclosure, and a whole lot more. All as a build-up to this episode that you're listening to right now. In this episode, we're going to reveal nearly all of the paranormal events which took place and may still be taking place on Skinwalker Ranch. The very reasons why rich, influential people, highly respected scientists, and the U.S. government all have had a very real interest in Skinwalker Ranch. Now, before we get into the stories, I have to warn you, there's next to no proof in the form of photos or videos that any of the stuff we're going to talk about actually happened. There's some carcasses and a photo or a video or two. We'll get into those. But as far as hard photo or video evidence, something repeatable and captured about these fantastic events, doesn't exist. All we have to go on is eyewitness testimony by people who, in their normal everyday lives, at their regular jobs, would be considered highly regarded, sensible, trustworthy, degreed, and accredited individuals. Would these individuals, once physically on Skinwalker Ranch, decide to throw all caution to the wind and make up or invent or flat out lie about what they're experiencing there? In my opinion, the answer is no, they wouldn't. Why would they? What would they gain from doing so? Fame? Notoriety? Maybe. But at what cost? Their reputations? Their careers? I just don't buy it. No, to me, the photo and video evidence doesn't exist because whatever's at Skinwalker Ranch is intelligent. It's smart. It knows when it's being, for lack of a better word, hunted. That's why most of the stories we get about Skinwalker Ranch come from the Shermans, the rancher family that owned the property before Robert Bigelow. The Shermans weren't scientists. The Shermans didn't have an unlimited budget, partly funded by the U.S. government, to purchase and implement state-of-the-art equipment. They were a fucking ranching family who moved to the property to sow solid values into their children and to raise prize cattle. They weren't busting out big guns trying to hunt this thing. They're just trying to live a quiet life, and bam, insanity, day after day. When Bigelow shows up with his team of scientists and all the associated equipment and activities, that's when whatever's at Skinwalker Ranch basically decided to go dark. It copped an attitude. No, you will not catch me. You will not document me. It's smart. It's elusive. It knows when it's being hunted. Sure, stuff did happen while Bigelow owned the ranch, and we'll talk about that. But as far as hard evidence, they never collected it that we know of. Hell, at one point, while Bigelow owned Skinwalker Ranch, 3 different surveillance cameras, situated far apart from one another and positioned about 15 feet in the air, all had their wires ripped out at the exact same time. And the cameras were all pointed at one another. So if a physical person or physical people were the culprit, they would have been caught in at least one of the cameras. But they weren't. If that doesn't say we don't want to be seen or hunted, I don't know what does. And I say we, I don't know if this thing is a we or if it's an I, or if it's paranormal, extraterrestrial, terrestrial, or something else. But I do believe something does exist on Skinwalker Ranch, and I believe it's intelligent. Maybe it knows I'm talking about it right now. Maybe it knows you're listening to stories about it right now. Anyway, I hope I set the stage. Now let's get into the stories about Skinwalker Ranch. And the way we're going to break this down, Oscar and I did independent research on the property and the overall Uinta Basin, right?
Yep.
So Oscar's going to go through his research first, and we made sure our stories didn't overlap. So you're going to hear all different stories, tons of different captivating, in some cases terrifying stories about what's happening at this place. So what do you say, Oscar? Do you want to get into your research first?
Okay, yes, I have a whole thing written out here for everyone, folks. Let's start. Me. Okay.
Nice.
There is a lot to cover. The huge misfortune is that there isn't enough time or right rhythm to tell you everything there is with Skinwalker Ranch, as well as the neighboring areas. The bigger and truer misfortune is that not enough people have taken the time to read what Jay and I have read. Fact. The Uinta Basin is a hotbed for UFO activity, and we're about to demonstrate, but mainly because of people who've talked and written about in the area. The peak of the sightings were in the 60s and 70s, where people in this country became used to seeing UFOs. That's like regular residents were used to it at some point in the 60s and 70s. I suggest Dr. Frank Salisbury's book, The Utah Ufo Display, which delves into hundreds of reports and interviews witnesses of UFO activity. Most of the case files used in the book came from Joseph Hicks, or Joseph Jr. Hicks, a man worth reading about as well. He was a science teacher in the area who did a lot of those, wrote a lot of those reports. My findings for today's episode follow a certain structure. I'll begin with stories of the surrounding area by people on the fringes of Skinwalker Ranch. Then I'll continue with tales from the people of the Uinta Basin, people who live and breathe the experiences that scientists have been talking about on the ranch. And then I'll end with stories, or should I say official reports, compiled by several professionals that worked on the famous property. So let's begin. Journalist for Wired magazine Sarah Scholes had a personal experience to add to the article she wrote on Skinwalker Ranch in relation to Hunt for the Skinwalker. That's the name of the book. Sarah and her sister were driving an I-70 towards the Uinta Basin for a better understanding to the audiobook version of the famous book when they took a break and stopped at a place called Rio Blanco Lake. Over the peaceful, frozen lake, a sound disturbed the atmosphere. Quote, great metallic twangs or thwangs or something that seemed to start here, no, there, and rush across the landscape as if carried on an invisible wire. Unquote. Sarah described the sounds as alien spaceship chatter, or strange lightsabers, or a series of plugged power lines playing an instrument. Better yet, Sarah did record a portion of the event, and it sounded like this. Sarah Scholes is the author. Well, first of all, awesome sound. I don't know if you guys got that, but it's pretty weird. Sarah Scholes is the author of a book called Making Contact, and the very new book came out in March of this year called They Are Already Here, both about extraterrestrials. Rio Blanco Lake is 116 miles from Skinwalker Ranch, and by far the farthest I'll get, I promise. The rest comes much closer. But I want to mention that because she is a journalist writing about the place as well as a book, and, was meeting up with people and whatnot to write about it on Wired magazine. And she became like a convent, essentially, a convert or whatever, and started writing about the, UFOs and stuff after that. Wow. So that's like a true believer, or a new believer, I guess.
Yeah, the convert, like you said. Yeah, I mean, Wired magazine, that's pretty hard hitting, just straight facts sort of writing.
Yeah, and that news article she wrote about it, she talked about never believing in this stuff originally until that day.
Until she heard that crazy sound, that weird sound.
Yeah, that weird sound, and obviously, listen to the audiobook and interviewing these people for the article. It went a long way, but she has 2 books under her belt about the UFO stuff. So that's very interesting.
Nice.
Here's a second story for you guys. In January 1999, a man named Gregory Todd had a UFO sighting while driving home to the town of Vernal. He described the object as metallic, circular, and gray. The aircraft had no wings or a tail and was traveling at a high velocity towards the ground. The aircraft came down on the horizon behind clouds, and no sound came from what should have been a crash. This led Todd to believe that the object was huge if it was still so far away, like from here to listen to something.
Yeah.
The town of Vernal, Utah is roughly 30 miles from Skinwalker Ranch.
Getting closer.
Yes, a little closer. In 2006, a man named Ryan Skinner and wife Irina, not 100%, were traveling down I-70 headed to Las Vegas when something strange happened. Irina, who was driving, said they were being followed by something that looked like a sparkler on fire. Stopping to investigate, Ryan noticed that the light was a mere 20 feet away from the car and hovered at 7 feet above the ground. The light split into 3 separate lights and began closing in. Irina screamed, and Ryan took the driver's seat and sped away. For some reason, his knee-jerk reaction was to head to Green River, which, coincidentally, it travels pretty close to Skinwalker Ranch if you follow Green River on the map. And after some driving, Irina convinced Ryan to stop and investigate once more. The lights returned and morphed, like literally morphed, into shadowy figures, alien and transparent, alongside the road. When that happened, the couple drove the fuck away and did not return anytime soon. Later, Ryan realized the area they left was only 30 miles away from Skinwalker Ranch. Ryan, like many others, after experiencing such activity, would return to the area surrounding the ranch and search for answers. Many times over, by the way. Return trips to the ranch yielded some experiences for him and his friends, which included seeing orbs of light, one of which materialized into a black mist, followed by a wolf emerging from it.
What?
Yes, that's what he says. Ryan operates currently skinwalkerranch.org. So that's a convert if there ever was one.
Okay, if you could pause for 1 second.
Yes.
I'm trying to get into my...
By the way, as I'm reading it, I can't tell if you're social cueing me.
Oh, because the background is fluky.
Yes.
I'm trying to get into my Kindle book library on my iPad here because I know this person you just referenced, and he wrote a book. It is called Skinwalker Ranch, Path of the Skinwalker by Ryan Skinner. And he details a lot of these experiences in that book. It's one of the books I was reading for these 2 episodes.
You're kidding.
So I know exactly what you're referring to. Listeners, check it out. Skinwalker Ranch, Path of the Skinwalker, Ryan Skinner. That orb story. Yeah. That black orb story with the mist and a wolf.
Yeah.
Some of that's going to play into a story I have. So great find.
Awesome. So that's Ryan Skinner. He was a convert too, because that experience led to other, his curiosity, guide him. And now look at him. He's writing this book. He was in charge of skinwalkerranch.org, which is a compilation of a lot of information there. So yeah, he became something out of it. So that's very interesting.
Wow.
Here's another story. There's a place 35 miles from Skinwalker Ranch that's filled with superstition and lore. It's called Dark Canyon, and it is covered with tall pines and is the source, according to Native American legend, to finding answers to the work of spirits and alternate realities. Some of it, malicious spirits. It is very much so tribal land. You need permission, I believe, to get in there. A woman named Shelby, I'm going to fuck up the last name here because I didn't get a full, a translation of it to say it phonetically, but I'm just going to be my best here. A woman named Shelby Chapuz, maybe, has her own story, which occurred in 2017. Shelby noticed a reflection of light when watching a bunch of hikers traversing the mountain. From what she described as the crook of the mountain, Shelby saw a saucer coming up, over, and back down alongside the mountain. The saucer, a more classic model of UFOs, was quite large because of how easily its size can be compared to the mountaintop from the ground where she was. It's pretty big. Big enough to tell the difference. Yeah. Shelby fits in with a lot of people's experiences over the years, especially for those like her who live there. She's, I believe, a teacher or something. Shelby has another interesting story. She describes one evening when she lost time. She had woken up at 1 a.m. She recalls having sat up and that while being aware of her actions, she had no control of her actions. Man. She goes to the living room and saw 2 bright lights, what she called spotlights, over the dining room area. A blink, and Shelby is standing in the opposite direction towards the stove, looking at the clock, saw that it was 8 a.m.
Holy shit.
She lost roughly 7 hours, give or take.
That is terrifying, man.
Right. The light was covering the light that she had seen originally at 1 in the morning. The light was covering the entire area and said that it was brighter than daylight. Not flashlight or LED could compare to the whiteness and intensity of those lights. And think about, and I want our listeners to remember the whiteness and intensity of lights, because that's going to come back in one of my stories.
One of mine too, actually.
Really? That's interesting.
Yep.
I have another one here. Ryan Burns was driving one day when he saw what he thought was a UFO near a ridgeline in the area behind Skinwalker Ranch. Very soon after seeing this, Ryan spotted an elderly Native American man coming down from atop a bluff and approaching his car. He asked the man if he needed a ride somewhere. The elderly man did not respond and instead opened the door and entered the vehicle.
Oh.
Ryan does not remember what happened after that. This is another lost time one.
Holy shit.
He was found later by local authorities hanging out of his car, but still buckled in. Ryan was in a catatonic state when found. Him and his truck was found at Bottle Hollow Reservoir, which is just what? What?
Okay, no, we're gonna get into Bottle Hollow. This is amazing. I didn't hear this. Go. I'm sorry.
Okay. Sorry. I thought I was stepping on your toes or something.
No.
Okay. I'm going to read that sentence again. Him and his truck was found at Bottle Hollow Reservoir, which is just north of the ranch. And after it was determined that Ryan hadn't consumed drugs or alcohol or had passed out, local police joked, saying to him that he'd been kidnapped by the Skinwalker.
No shit.
Here's a little addendum to that story. Sometime after 2005, Ryan Burns bought a small land parcel in the basin, and it has been called as the Southern Ranch Vantage Point. Ufologists meet there with a group called Space Wolf Research to uncover what they believe to be the secrets of the universe. So that guy became a convert after that incident. I mean, that's a hell of an incident. How do you not remember? How do you not forget that?
Right.
So that's one story. I have another one here. Of course, I have like 10 more. I'm kidding. I have like 7 more.
No, this is great. I love it.
A man with over 25 years in law enforcement in the Uinta Basin, who asked to be remain nameless, had many reports come into his local police station over the years, and that he himself had seen in 1971 things in the sky that he believes to be UFOs. He and other officers did a poll asking residents if they believe in UFOs and if the Uinta Basin is indeed a hotbed for such activity. The result was overwhelming yes to undecided, but that no one said they didn't believe. This man's wife had seen a UFO that coincides with a mutilation of a cow and had a sighting in 1995 directly over Skinwalker Ranch, like in the sky over it. Mm-hmm. This object, which was reported 3 years later in 1998, was said to be shaped like a hexagon, aluminum colored, and had 4 lights, and that those lights connected like a bar. And that's all I got from that particular story.
No,
here's another one. This is we're into locals now with the officer, and from now on we're going to get into some more local Uinta Basin residents here. I have a person named here, Janice Puyup. So the last name is spelled Poowegup, but it's Native American. It's pronounced Puyup. Janice Puyup lives just west of Skinwalker Ranch in the basin. There were 4 cows bellowing nearby, but she couldn't identify their position. It was nighttime, and she went out in her truck with her son and a neighbor. The idea was to get a spotlight to scan the area for the animals. The purpose of scanning the tree line was to catch sight of the cow's eyes reflecting back.
Okay.
After failing to locate them with the spotlight, Janice stopped, and they all listened for the bellows again. Just then, a bright light came from somewhere in the sky. The light came down over Janice and company, the light enveloping the entire area. It vanished suddenly. Nothing machine-made or otherwise was around them and the truck. She became a believer after this incident.
Damn.
Furthermore, Janice has a deep fear of this event and other supernatural activity within the basin because of what happened to that neighbor of hers and her son. Her neighbor, a man named Charlie Wynn, was within Janice's vicinity when the light poured down and had, at that time of the incident that night, had what looked like deep red burns on his skin. Soon after that, he was diagnosed with cancer and has since passed away from it.
Holy shit.
Her son, Gary Puyup, is the first of the family and family tree to get MS. That's multiple sclerosis, for those who are wondering. He was around 30 years old when diagnosed. Pretty early on, by the way. Gary, however, doesn't believe his illness is caused by the light or by some, what he calls, galactic hitchhikers. But his mother is very much so believes in that, because that's like too coincidental for her. Right. So she has like some deep fear associated with the UFO activity in that area. So that's one story. Another one here. In 2012, a man named Corey Sirawap has an unforgettable experience. This is really cool. This event happened in Fort Duquesne. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, because I have people talk about it and they say Duchesne.
Yeah, I've seen that name as well, and I was kind of confused if it's Duchesne. Yeah.
So I'm gonna call it Duquesne from now on, just for me myself. It's just easier, so I'm gonna call it that because that's what I thought initially. This event happened in Fort Duquesne, which is located only a few miles northeast from Skinwalker Ranch, and by chance is the headquarters of the Ute Indian tribe. While working at an addiction treatment center around 6 a.m., Corey noticed signal losses on the TVs before the lights went out. Red, green, and blue lights were seen by him and several employees coming from outside. Thinking the lights came from an ambulance, Corey went outside, right?
Yeah.
The lights weren't coming from the ground level, but from above the building. Oh. No sound came from the mysterious aircraft, only these strange lights. Corey describes the craft as dark gray and about the size of a small airplane and had a cloud forming around it. There's an extra weirdness to this, though. Corey, deciding to take a closer look, suddenly, this is how he described it, suddenly had the thought of instead going back inside the building. Going inside the building, he starts telling people what he saw about inside the building, what he saw, and he wanted to go back outside again and investigate, right? See the spacecraft again. Once he decided to go back outside again, at this time, another thought telling him to remain inside or he'd miss his family came to his mind.
Oh my God, dude.
Fearfully, as you can imagine, Corey listened. In what seemed only several minutes of heading out, gawking at the spacecraft, and returning inside, he realized that 30 to 45 minutes had passed. Officially, the power outage was caused by a blown transformer, but it isn't believed by the locals. Corey spoke to people afterward and heard of sights of 2 spacecrafts at the time of the events. Not just 1, 2. Whoa. One of them passing over his uncle's home, vibrating the entire house as it whooshed by. What
the fuck is going on?
You want to ask something about this now?
In the Utah Basin. Yeah. No, dude, I'm just shaking my head in like disbelief. It's seriously, you just can't even imagine the kind of stuff that's going on here. And the kind of witnesses there are, and these converts, as you call them, having these life-changing experiences in this area. Yes. I don't even know what to say with it. For me, it's terrifying because I hate that UFO shit. I know
you're really afraid of
alien fuckers. And when you were telling that story about this guy coming out of the addiction center, and seeing those lights, dude, I got the skin. My skin started to crawl.
Yeah. Because
how misleading is that to have someone think, oh, there's something going on outside. It's an ambulance. Someone needs help. There's an emergency.
Right. He's in an addiction center. He's in a rehab clinic, essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right.
And then you get him outside and boom, missing time. What the fuck happened? You know?
Well, he was aware of everything he was doing. It's not like, but he thought it was only a few minutes, but it was actually like 30 to 45. So it's so weird.
That is weird. And to have something say to you, in your mind, or right. You're going to miss your family if you don't get back inside. Holy shit.
Yes.
I'm telling you, man, we got to go.
As afraid as you are.
I might not come back, but we got to go. Right.
Of course.
Are you ready for continue. The next one? Please.
The next 4 stories, or the next 4 sections, I should say, come directly from the National Institute of Discovery Science. Directly from them.
So just as a refresh, that's NIDS that Robert Bigelow was involved with, correct?
Yes.
On Skinwalker Ranch.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
I pulled them from whatever they dug up and whatever they decided to post for review. That's where I got it from. So here goes. Out from the Desert News in 1978, a local newspaper, they reported witnesses in the Uinta Basin seeing a very large aircraft in the sky. And I mean very large. These reports came together with other residents from Vernal, Utah, Roosevelt, which is pretty close to the ranch, and Ballard, Utah. Reports from Ballard spoke of a dome-shaped, shiny object in the sky. Dale Wood, a student at Vernal Junior High School, was the first to see the UFO and had the best description. On August 11th, 10:30 p.m., Dale first heard what he described as a finely tuned engine that was purring. Looking up, he saw a silver dome-shaped object. It was surrounded by a very intense green light that was jagged like the flames of a fire. When the UFO hovered directly above him, because it was passing him, Dale was able to see underneath a section of the spacecraft. He saw several lights, with the center light the most intense. The craft made no sound when it hovered over him. People later said they saw UFO moving at high speed north towards the mountains. And I got to say, there is at least 50 miles separating Vernal to Ballard.
Okay.
40 to 50, I think. I did I don't know, for some reason I forgot to write the miles on some of these, but I did see a map and I did compare them. So It is pretty legit on that. So it's a huge fucking air spread. It's a huge, all these people in different towns saw it, on that same day. And that was in 1978, at the height of all this insanity or whatever you want to call it.
Like the height of UFO sightings, or?
Yes, the UFO
just in America in general.
Right. We think it's now. We think it was when this was there or whatever, or in the 90s. I'm not saying it wasn't zero.
Right.
But apparently the height, the height of it was the 60s and 70s.
Okay.
According to a lot of books and stuff, or people that did the area. So here's the next story. In the morning of February 21st, 2002, NIDS was contacted regarding an ice circle that mysteriously appeared on a ranch to the northeast overnight. The circle measured at 5 feet and 9 inches in diameter, discovered in an irrigation canal. The circle appeared to be approximately 1/4 of an inch deep in the ice, and multiple ice shavings were found around the circumference, suggesting it had been gouged or cut rather than melted.
Oh, okay. I got you.
The circle was very near to be a perfect circle. So that's really interesting too.
Yeah.
The investigation produced further mysteries about the circle. It was determined that the center of the circle was undisturbed, which is the location that were best to lay an instrument to produce such a cut.
Oh, like a post, like a stick with a strip or something.
Like a what do you call it? Not a compass. Is that what do you call it?
A compass,
or tractor?
Yeah. I forgot which is which.
Geometry is not my fucking strong suit.
But right, so that's really important to know. So the center of the circle was undisturbed. There wasn't anything stuck into.
Yep.
And then
I read the entire report the investigator did that day.
That's awesome.
Yep. Since the ice layer was very thin, it was judged that 15 to 20 pound weight would have broken the ice sheet at any time during the evening. Therefore, the possibility of a person being supported on the ice to carve the circle was not possible.
Whoa.
Think about that. Since the groove had been carved into the top of the ice, it was deemed not possible to originate from underneath the layer. Not possible, because it was from the top. Okay. Water and rock patterns were also closely studied to see if some unusual combination in nature could have caused the near-perfect circle, but was found not to be the cause. Now, I'm not including all the details of that because it goes really scientific, but essentially they deemed it not possible. Okay. One thing that was possibly determined, the only thing, was that the cut was made by an anti-clockwise rotation. Huh. No tracks of any kind, save for a few animals, were found in the area. Trace water elements and magnetic and EM radiation fields came back negative for anything abnormal. This case remains unsolved.
What the fuck?
Right? What is that? I wanted to include a really weird one because ice circles, how is that a mystery? But it appeared one night.
You don't hear that. Crop circles all day long, but ice circles.
Right. Ice circles.
So interesting.
Super interesting. I have one here. Here's one that you and I discussed a little, Jay, on off screen. It's an abstract case. On October 16, 1998, a 3-year-old registered pulled Hereford cow. That's the name of it. Registered polled Hereford. It's like the name of the cow.
Oh, it's a type of cow. Okay.
Yeah,
gotcha.
I don't know. But they put the whole title in there. So 1988, a 3-year-old cow, registered cow, was found dead by the owner who had seen the animal in good health the previous day. The animal's left eye or periorbital tissue was removed, as well as part of its left ear. A full necropsy, followed by toxicological, histological, and chemical analysis was done on the animal. The following noteworthy features were found. This is when they did basically the autopsy, right?
Yeah. Now, this animal was found on Skinwalker Ranch.
Yes, I believe so. Sorry.
And this was a Sherman cattle.
Was it a Sherman cattle? I see. It didn't say that. I read the report only
Yes.
of the cow itself. I did not know it happened to the Shermans.
Yes. Yeah. No. It's good. So this happened on Skinwalker. It belonged to Terry Sherman.
Yes. And there's 10 things they found out about it. Here's the 10 things. Sorry.
Go for it.
1. Both the left periorbital tissue and left ear were removed with a sharp instrument or instruments, as confirmed by 2 and 3 veterinary pathologists, respectively. 2. No evidence of high heat or cautery was obtained from these cuts. 3. No signs of struggle and no tracks were found near the animal. 4. An unusual formaldehyde-containing blue gel-like substance was found on the eye, the ear, and the anus of the animal. Using headspace gas chromatography mass spectrometry analysis, the blue gel-like substance was shown to contain a synthetic molecule with antioxidant and antiviral properties, as well as contaminants of normal putrefaction breakdown products from cow tissue. Sorry, that was long.
No. Could I interject?
Yes.
Could I do it real quick?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
this was the one story that you and I overlapped on.
Yes.
And you wanted to tell your story. So some of the information I found also about that chemical analysis of that blue gel-like substance contained over 67 known chemicals, including gold and hafnium. 2 of the main things we talked about in the last episode, right?
A lot. That was a good chunk of the last episode.
Yeah. Plus you said some traces of formaldehyde and like 65 or 66 other known chemicals.
Antioxidant, antiviral properties.
Yes. But scientists never seen that combination of chemicals before. Yes, all the chemicals are known, but never put together like that. Yeah. So technically, according to the scientists, it's an unknown substance, right?
Basically, yeah.
There you go. And before Oscar continues, also, listeners, check out this episode's show notes. I'm going to put a link to that report Oscar's talking about. It's a 45-page scientific report of an actual cattle mutilation on Skinwalker Ranch. You got to check it out. It's amazing.
Yeah, I have the same report, I think. Let's see. That's... where am I for? 5. The animal's heart was shredded, yet its pericardium was intact, mysteriously. 6. The animal tested positive on 2 different pregnancy tests, yet there was no fetus present at the time of necropsy and no sign of recent spontaneous abortion. 7.
Absolutely
super weird. It is suspected that the animal's blood contained high levels of potassium chloride. 8. The animal had extremely low liver copper levels and low vitamin A levels. 9. Severe hemorrhaging under the hide around the neck of the animal was observed. The animal was normal for routine bacteriology, virology, and toxicology scans. In summary, the totality of the data obtained from the necropsy, combined with the histological, toxicological, bacteriological, and chemical analysis, suggests that the animal did not die a normal death. It just fucking didn't. And it is kind of still mysterious. I mean, they did all this fucking stuff. They scientifically went really into everything. It's really amazing what they did. They really did the work, but the work yielded no earthly reason why this happened.
Yeah.
Or how, right? Or how.
You're absolutely right.
So,
she was pregnant. The cow was pregnant for a number of months. There should have been something in that.
Something in there.
In the womb, but there wasn't. And like you said, no sign of birth or abortion, a spontaneous abortion.
Right.
The heart was shredded.
Yeah.
They couldn't get any useful data from the heart because it was fucking shredded.
But the pericardium was fine.
Yeah, with no other signs of trauma.
How does that happen? You gotta imagine that maybe, you know what it sounds like to me?
Fucking
You know
hate it. Oh, I hate it.
You know what it kind of sounds like now that I'm thinking about it? Now that, we're talking more about it. I think it's, I think the cow was unfortunately met with some sort of sound barrier.
A sound barrier?
Like a sound, some horrifying sound or wavelength of some sort. Not maybe unknown to us, or maybe like a very strong, magnified or focused wavelength of something bad hit this cow, and it caused those things to happen. Including
the missing fetus and the eye.
No. I mean, this comes from the sky. This comes from anywhere. I'm saying that's probably what causes death. And then, you ideally can imagine like maybe something pours out of the ear, something pours out of the eye. So they cut around it, whoever did this, to take it back for analysis or to take it for evidence. So we won't look at it.
Interesting.
You know what I'm saying? Like those two places, when you think of how you hear, when you think of that Cuban problem that we mentioned a long time ago about, sound waves kill people.
Oh, yes.
And you think of other things like that, things that affect you are the cavities in your body. You start bleeding from the nose, from the ears, from the eyes, and 2 out of the 3 areas, it seems that where this cow was affected, it could be because of some sort of wavelength of some sort. Some wave of something hit him, either sound or something else.
I haven't thought of that. That's really interesting. That's an interesting thought.
Yeah, I don't know.
It immediately incapacitates the animal. And
it's just too much for it.
So that drops the animal, and then this thing, whatever it is free to do what it can without interruption.
Funny enough, have you ever seen the movie Dogma?
Sure, yeah.
By Kevin Smith?
Oh.
In that movie, Alanis Morissette, who plays God, it's at the end of the movie, and the God's voice is so powerful that no human can hear it without like their heart exploding from their chest.
That's right.
Right? And they play, it's funny, it's a gag, but they play it off that way, and that's what she does to kill the 2 rogue angels.
That's right.
And so, same.
Damn.
Happened.
Good story.
Yeah,
good story. And again, check the show notes. I mean, there's an actual bona fide scientific report on this thing, 45 pages long.
Yes, it's very long. I didn't read the whole damn thing, but I read a bunch of it. All right. This is my kind of like last entry, and it leads to my ending. The following accounts is by a nameless Uinta Basin local under a NIDS investigator. This is a NIDS investigator, taking the testimony of this one person. Once, when he was 12 years old, now he writes everything, by the way, I should say, he writes everything in the first person, but I just took it as, I'm reading it for him. So I'm not like quoting him or anything. I'm just taking what he wrote and just putting it as he did this, he saw this.
Okay, understood.
Instead of I saw this or my brother did that, right? Okay. Once when he was 12 years old and with his family, they were heading down to Randlet for something he called a bear dance. Him and his brother were on the bed of the truck and saw, for some reason, he saw monkeys. A lot of monkeys running up a hill next to an old shack. This happened during the daytime. It's very strange, and the one thing he never forgot. Now, it has happened when he was a kid, though. So specifics as to the monkeys, whether or not, this is the interesting thing, because whether or not those monkeys were, that famous orange-colored monkeys that we talked about when we talked about that one place in Asia.
Oh, the orang pendic.
Yes.
When we talked about that Thai
I don't know
Twitter
if it was that.
Okay.
I don't know if it was that, but he said that they were monkeys, and many of them, like a herd running
monkeys
running past the truck as they were driving by. It was like a simple thing they saw on the side of the street. Monkeys are not fucking known to this area, guys.
No,
they're not known. They're not birds. They're not the local anything. Monkeys belong in jungles. They belong in different biomes of the world, not in fucking Uinta Basin. So that's very strange. This happened a long time ago. He's an adult now. He's talking about when he was a kid. He was 12 years old when it happened. Here's another story. He says, this happened during the daytime. I already said that. In 2004, his now adult brother came to him and said to help him lock all the doors and windows and to secure a weapon. When asked about what was going on, his brother said something tall and dark was out there and that his daughter had seen it by the corner of the house. Nothing happened that evening, but in the morning, still awake, the door to his room suddenly banged shut and no one was around or awake to have shut it.
Oh.
Yeah.
The tall black figure, that's going to come back.
Right. Here's another one that he puts in there. I wrote a bunch of them here. Right past Hilltop, that's the name of a town, I guess. Hilltop, a friend of the man he saw, what she described as 4 skinwalkers across the road in the early morning. She called them skinwalkers. She wasn't going fast, and her daughter was in the back seat sleeping, and she simply knew that for some reason, going fast would not be the smart thing to do. She said they were tall, hairy, and they just looked so hard to describe. She described it that way. They looked hard to describe.
Wow.
She waited for these creatures to cross and had to rush to work by going on a longer way around to avoid going by the lake in Fort Duquesne. For some reason, she feared that area. There were several other stories this man had under his belt, though. He says there are things out there, things that chooses certain people to see them, like this niece or this friend. This belief goes hand in hand with how scientists felt about the ranch during their investigations under NIDS. No 2 events happen the same way. Nothing could be predicted. There is intelligence behind the awesome array of phenomena that occurs in the northeast region of Utah. Locals and certain Native American lore talk about this very intelligence as trickster, malicious, and more akin to like a Loki type or a scoundrel. It's out to incite confusion and awe.
Man. Well, there you have it. It's a perfect sampling from all categories of the paranormal, pretty much, that takes place in this relatively small area up in northeast Utah.
Yeah.
I mean, monkeys. So we have cryptids, essentially.
Yes.
Animals in a location where they should not be, that should not exist.
Yeah.
We have cattle mutilations. We have UFOs. We have lost time, lights in the sky. I mean, I don't know. I don't even know. I can't put my finger on what this place is. And not everyone's a liar. Not everyone makes shit up.
Well, that's the thing. You know, it's funny. I saw so you read the Hunt for the Skinwalker. I saw the documentary. And I saw the documentary twice. And towards the end, they had this little get-together with George Knapp and other famous ufologists and people famous in the whole industry or professionals in some way, like Colum Kelleher, who we talked about as the lead investigator or the lead researcher in NIDS. And they mentioned something that was interesting. They were talking about their experiences there and what they think is going on. And they said that they were talking about how to bring facts or evidence to people who don't know about this place or people who are curious. And one of them brought up this interesting idea that we need to open up what we believe to be sources of facts or sources of information, and that the only thing that works in this whole area, Uinta Basin, Skinwalker, Dark Canyon, you know, the only thing that works is testimonies. Witnesses are the prime thing that helps us. The fact that there's overwhelming amount of stories, specific stories, some of them correlate to each other, some don't. That should be used as fact in the case of Skinwalker Ranch, and that we can't rely on waiting for audio recordings, video recordings. I mean, that's it, or like a piece of an animal or something, you know, physical evidence. We can't rely on that. We have to rely on testimonies, just like the days of old. You know, in the old days where everything was oral history, right? And everything was passed down that way. And if someone tells you something, you fucking worry about it, you know?
Yeah.
And you believe that person, right? Because that person's your neighbor, that person's whatever. And that's how we have to treat this whole area. Because one thing it has plenty of, Jay, is these fucking stories, these fucking people telling their stories. And it's got to be counted as evidence. That's the only way it can work. And that's how the guy puts it in the documentary. And I thought that was interesting because that's the only way to approach this thing. That's the only way to take this seriously, and we have to take it seriously. If we believe one of these people is not crazy to make shit up, then it has to be a lot more than one person.
Exactly.
And if it has to be a lot more than one person, then it's got to be fucking evidence. So take this place seriously.
Well said, man.
Right? So,
you're right.
Yeah.
That's the thing. If just one person isn't lying, that says a whole lot about our universe that we just can't even fathom, you know. Good job on the research, man.
Thank you. Sorry I stepped on your toes on that one.
No, not at all. Not at all. Well, I have a number of stories as well. Some are going to contain cryptid animals. Some are going to contain paranormal activity, UFOs. I have an interview I did for you to listen to, and the listeners to listen to. So, some monsters, some straight up monsters, and some plain old high strangeness. So I'm going to start. And the one I'm going to start with is probably the most often told story about Skinwalker Ranch. Now, I've read multiple versions of this story. It kind of changes depending on what you read, but I'm going with the version that I found in the book Hunt for the Skinwalker: Science Confronts the Unexplained at a Remote Ranch in Utah by Colm Kelleher, as you mentioned, and George Knapp.
Yeah. Because
these guys actually interviewed the Shermans and got the story from the source. The story happened to the Sherman family. So that's what I'm going to use. So back in 1994, right after the Shermans moved on to Skinwalker Ranch, they were unloading some supplies at a corral on the property. It was daytime. The scenery was beautiful. It had just rained earlier, so the air had that nice fresh rain scent. You know, just a normal day, a lovely day. Really a perfect example of why the Shermans bought the property in the first place: the serenity, the beauty, the landscape. As they were unloading at the corral, one of the Shermans looked up, and they never say who, if it was the father, son, the wife. They looked up and they spotted off in the distance a wolf walking towards them, almost majestically, like the wolf had purpose. It didn't seem to be spooked by the family. So the Shermans at first thought it must be someone's pet. And the wolf walked right up next to Terry Sherman. And immediately, Terry noticed two things. First, the wolf was huge, bigger than any wolf Terry had seen before, as the beast came up to his chest. That's how tall this thing was.
Damn.
The second thing Terry noticed was the wolf's eyes. They were ice blue, and he described them as eyes that could look into your soul. Okay? Now, as scary as this encounter might sound, the wolf showed no signs of aggression towards the family. Actually, it seemed friendly, and it even let the Shermans pet it. They felt its fur. They could even smell the dampness on its fur from the earlier rainstorm. It was real. And all was cool with the wolf until a calf inside the corral the Shermans were unloading at stuck its head through one of the corral bars. And that's when things got fucking crazy. Fast. With lightning speed, this huge wolf darted over the corral and chomped onto the calf's head. Now, as we mentioned in the last episode, the Shermans, they raised prize cattle, very expensive animals. So a wolf trying to make a meal out of a prized calf absolutely could not happen. As the calf was bleeding and blood was running down its head from the wolf's razor-sharp teeth, Terry Sherman starts unloading on the wolf, first kicking it as hard as he could, multiple times. The wolf wouldn't let go. Then he beat the wolf with a baseball bat he had in his truck. And the wolf still wouldn't let go.
Damn, that's some guts, bro.
Oh, wait. Terry then shot the wolf 3 times with the .357 Magnum at near point-blank range. And still, the wolf wouldn't let go of the calf's head. And chillingly, the wolf didn't even act phased after taking a hurl of kicks, multiple whacks with a baseball bat, and 3 shots with a .357. That's when Terry finally said, fuck this, and he ran to his car and he grabbed a .30-06, which is a rifle capable of hunting any big game in the world. Terry fired 2 more shots into the wolf with the .30-06 at near point-blank range. The first shot, again, didn't even faze the wolf. The second shot hit the wolf directly in the chest, causing a chunk of its skin and some of its fur to go flying. And that seemed to do it. The wolf let go of the calf, but the fucking thing didn't die like it should have. It merely let go of the calf, turned its icy blue eyes onto Terry Sherman and gave him the what the fuck look. And then it just sauntered off into the distant brush from where it came, as if it hadn't just been shot 5 times by 2 hand cannons. Fearing this thing would return and try to make meal out of more cattle, Terry Sherman and his son followed the wolf into the brush in hopes of putting this thing down once and for all. And the first thing they noticed, there was no blood trails. Even after shooting off a chunk of this thing's skin with 30-06, there was no blood to be found. The second thing they noticed, very large paw prints in the mud. These heavy, sunken-in tracks. Remember, it had rained earlier. But after following these clearly visible, huge paw prints for about a mile, the tracks just stopped. The wolf had vanished. Now later, when the Shermans tell this story to a group of scientists, the scientists do kind of a lineup. They show the Shermans a series of different pictures of different types of wolves, kind of like a criminal lineup in the movies, but with wolves instead, in hopes of trying to determine what type of animal the family saw. Now, all the family were shown these photos independently, not together as a group, but independently, and they all chose the same wolf from the lineup. It was a dire wolf that they chose.
Fucking Game of Thrones.
Right. It's an animal that went extinct almost 10,000 years ago. And just like Oscar said, if you don't know what a dire wolf is, think of Jon Snow's wolf, Ghost, from a Game of Thrones. That's a fucking dire wolf. So how in the world did a 10,000-year-old extinct animal find itself on Skinwalker Ranch in the mid-1990s? Did it get there through some type of a portal, maybe? Now, more on Skinwalker Ranch portals in a bit. Just a crazy story.
I have a thing about that. I have a couple questions, maybe. A couple things to bring up there. One is, what happened to the chunk that came out? So
in some stories you read, that chunk was immediately rotted flesh, and it stunk, and then it just slowly dissolved. Other stories don't even mention the chunk of skin once it was shot off.
You know what? That's probably something they would drop in subsequent storytellings of it because of how ridiculous it sounds that to have it like
it's true.
Rip off this great beast, and then have it rot immediately and something like that.
Yeah, and then it just kind of disintegrated, just kind of turned to nothing.
Right.
And disintegrated into nothing. Yeah.
My other thing is that what do you think is happening there with the wolf?
Oh, man. So many people that I've talked to while I'm researching this story have asked me, so after doing all this stuff, after reading all these stories in the books and, talking with Oscar, and what do you think is happening on Skinwalker Ranch, right?
Well, I'm just saying the wolf is specifically.
Well, I think Skinwalker Ranch is a thin area. It's thin, meaning the line between our world and the next, because, quantum physics has and string theory has proven that there's at least, I believe, 11 universes on top of ours or next to ours, however you want to say it. I'm not a fucking scientist.
In parallel
it's just
to
what
ours.
I've read. Exactly, yeah. Parallel to ours. So I think Skinwalker Ranch at the end of the day is one of these thin areas, and maybe in one of these parallel worlds, the direwolf never went extinct, and it's still there, and it's functioning and lopping around, like our pet dogs are. And it came through
one day, and it's
went back because the fucking thing disappeared.
I have something about this.
Yeah,
I have a theory about this. Well, first of all, I think what the wolf was actually doing. Now, I think it's acting like a wolf, or like a wolf / dog. Like the idea that it knows, maybe like a humanoid, right? It knows the difference. Like it knows to seek out cattle versus humans,
right.
Because cattle has more meat. They're idiots, right? They can't build fences.
It's not going to fight back.
Right. Maybe, pet them. It's almost like, are you inviting me for a meal? I'm coming over gently. Can you invite me for a meal? And it thinks this meal is free when it sticks its head out. And so when it turns back later on after getting shot so many times at the rancher, he's like, "What the fuck, bro? I thought we were cool." And then runs off.
Yeah.
That's where I'm thinking. Like it was like a dog saying, like, hey, can we hang out? Can you feed me something, so I can hang out with you? Like, it's
I
one of
love
those
it.
things. That's how dogs act,
Yeah.
in many ways. But my general theory about this, and the wolf one, it's a juicy story, one of the juiciest stories out there. I think it's similar to yours, but I think it's in relation to time. I think the one thing that's in control here is time. I think that everything that's happening in the Uinta Basin has happened either several times or happened just once over the course of however old the Earth is, right? Or let's say just 100 years. Let's say over 100 years, there's been all this territory, all this shit happening. UFOs, poltergeists, fucking wolves, fucking orbs, fucking smoking lights, fucking UFOs, whatever. All this stuff. And I think the one thing that makes, the intelligent design behind it that we talked about, I think what it is that it's someone fucking with time. I think someone just fucking with time. Someone is taking these events or something and putting it in different times of the world, different times in our timeline. They're just dropping it in. They're dropping a dire wolf in from prehistoric times at this time zone. So when a chunk of his flesh gets blown off from his normal timeline track of hunting and killing and running away into the woods, like when that thing jumps off him, that thing is as old as it would have been had it been around 100,000 years ago.
The skin piece.
The chunk.
Yeah.
That's what gave me the theory, the idea that the chunk never came back, that disappeared the way it did. And I think that proves that anything that this wolf is done to that goes outside of his timeline gets disintegrated the way it did, because it doesn't belong there.
Wow.
Because only a part of him is coming into our timeline where the Shermans are owners of the ranch. And that probably goes hand in hand to how this all seems very trickstery, where no cameras can see it, no photographs can be taken, no fucking audio can be taken, no physical evidence is left, because time doesn't exist around this thing appearing, even UFOs, even orbs, even the smoky black mist, even the dark canyon thing. That's why they can never be really found or taken or whatever, because it just dropped into our timelines and then dropped back out as like for fun, like a dangling thing, like to entice something, but never let you grab it,
You know what I'm thinking of? That's a really interesting theory, and it reminds me of, I don't know why, Cabin in the Woods.
That's interesting. Yes.
Where there's these manipulating factors, these people, just to see how the others will react.
Yes.
And in this case, they unleash horrible horror movie creatures just to see how the campers will react, right? Or what decisions they'll make in the face of this
and
odd experience.
Different. They're not doing it to see how they would react. They predict their reactions by controlling their environment, and then they're herding them like sheep in a way to different areas so they can be killed in their case. Yeah. But it's very similar. Very similar. It's like there's someone controlling the world around you that you have no idea about. You have no idea. It's like that. It's like we don't know that there's an underground lab full of government people controlling our actions or controlling this stuff. Yeah.
I'll tell you later in my stories here, we might meet this person. Who? This controller, this manipulator.
Okay.
Honest to God, now that you got me thinking about it, I wonder if this thing is exactly what you're referring to, the manipulator.
Oh, I think I know controller. Okay, I think I know which story you're talking about.
All right, we'll let it fall that. We'll let it fall.
Sorry, that was just one story. Guys, continue.
Great. And stop me at any point to ask questions, and I'll do the best I can. Now, so that was the dire wolf, right? The extinct animal experienced in the 90s. So keeping with the animal theme, animals on Skinwalker Ranch are constantly fucked with. We're talking cattle, bulls, horses, and dogs. Nothing's really safe on Skinwalker Ranch. So let's talk about the cattle mutilation stories I pulled up, okay? Now, on Skinwalker Ranch, cattle have been found surgically mutilated. They've had perfect holes cut into their eyeballs, holes that reach all the way back to the center of the animal's brain. Cattle have mysteriously disappeared. There 1 minute, gone the next, in other words. They've been driven off a cliff, and cattle have had their rectums surgically removed, cored out with a 6-inch hole wide that was 8 inches deep. Cored out with a 6-inch wide hole that was 8 inches deep.
Yeah.
Terry Sherman saw this particular Angus, the one that had its rectum cord out, less than an hour before it was killed. And it was grazing peacefully and in perfect health on the Skinwalker Ranch property. Nothing was off. Nothing was strange about it. Mr. Sherman walked away from the Angus to tend to some chores for less than an hour. And when he returned to check on the animal to make sure it didn't wander off somewhere and have to herd it back, that's when he found the cow, dead and rectum surgically removed. This happened in broad daylight in less than an hour's time.
Too much of this shit happens in broad daylight, by the way.
Yes. Oftentimes, cattle are found mutilated shortly after lights are seen in the sky. And on more than one occasion, a strange chemical smell can be detected lingering in the air around the carcass. It's even been noticed that scavengers will steer clear of the dead animals, meaning they refuse to feast on the remains. And a lot of times in these mutilation cases, no blood remains in the carcass, nor is blood found underneath the carcasses.
That's the weirdest part. It's almost that's so weird.
Yes. Even though these animals have suffered massive trauma, there's no blood. And speaking of massive trauma, this one is really nasty. An 84-pound calf was discovered on Skinwalker Ranch with one of its legs ripped completely off and lying about 10 feet away. Its ribs were broken and exposed, and all of its internal organs were missing, as was approximately 3 liters, or just under a gallon of its blood. There wasn't even any blood on the ground or on the animal's hide. It was a totally clean kill, despite the messy state of the carcass. And prior to this incident, about 40 minutes earlier, the calf was marked on one ear with a large yellow tag, used for keeping track of the herd and recording information such as the cow's gender, age, weight, stuff like that. The ear that was tagged was missing. It had been scalpeled off cleanly, not ripped like from a predator, but scalpeled, as a very precise, straight cut was found in the calf's head where the ear should have been. All this took place in approximately 40 minutes from the last time the calf was seen alive and nursing on its mother.
Pretty fucking hard to do.
Yes, and just again, another one, broad daylight, this happened. One time, the Shermans, Terry and Gwen, watched a cow wander into a snow-covered field. When the cow didn't return in a normal amount of time, husband and wife went out to look for the cow. Its tracks were clearly visible in the snow, but the tracks suddenly stopped, as if the damn thing had been lifted right up into the sky. In total, the Sherman family lost 16 heads of cattle while living on Skinwalker Ranch, lost them to either strange mutilations or they simply vanished. Keep in mind, again, these are prize cattle, lots of money wrapped up in these things. So the Shermans not only were traumatized for their entire stay on Skinwalker Ranch, they lost a ton of money to these strange circumstances. One day, this one's really, really strange. Terry and Gwen, they heard a bunch of ruckus coming from a particular herd of cattle, and
Hattle.
Yeah. One day, Terry and Gwen witnessed a herd of cattle stampeding for no apparent reason. They went out to check on them. They heard all this ruckus, and the cattle started stampeding. Something had spooked the cattle bad, so they took off running in unison. The strange part is that the cattle, as they were running, began to part, to separate. One part of the herd went to the east. One part of the herd started going to the west. To the Shermans, watching this thing in awe, it was like as if something was in the way, and the cattle were desperately trying to avoid it, or they were being repelled by it. Now, Terry Sherman, watching all this, he pulls out a compass. And the compass pointed straight to the area the cattle were so obviously avoiding. Terry mapped this, whatever it was, with his compass for 11 minutes. Then the thing began to move south. And sure as shit, the compass started moving south along with it, right? He tracked it, and then the thing disappeared. Now for the compass to lock onto this thing and then follow it as it moved means that whatever it was that was causing the cattle to split, like the Red Sea, must have been giving off huge amounts huge amounts of magnetic energy. But what the hell was it?
Yeah, it takes quite a bit to not only disturb animals, because you can do the same with birds. You know, when you have earthquakes, it disturbs the magnetic field of birds.
Yes.
So they start crashing to the ground and to things they don't understand because it's fucking up with their brain, right?
Yeah,
the
the
way
sonar,
they fly.
whatever they use. Yeah,
Whatever they use in their brains to fly and take direction. I mean, and to affect then cattle, like ground animals like that, it's heavier, and to affect the compass that way.
I know.
It's not like a regular. I mean, if you have like a powerful magnet near the thing, you could probably manipulate it, but that's heavy.
Right.
Yeah, it's heavy.
Crazy. Makes no sense. Now, this case happened to one of the Sherman's neighbors, another rancher, someone next to Skinwalker. Now, one afternoon, remember, this is yet another example of this stuff happening in broad daylight. One afternoon, the Sherman's neighbor, the rancher, found an 8-year-old cow laying in his open pasture, suffering from 2 broken legs. The animal was still alive, but it was scared and shivering and in obvious pain. So the rancher ran back to his home to grab a blanket and a gun in case he had to put the poor thing out of its misery, right? The neighbor claims this took only about 5 minutes, and when he came back to the cow, it was, of course, gone. Now, they're in a wide open pasture, and an 8-year-old cow, I looked it up, can weigh upwards of about 1,300 pounds.
Oh.
So it's basically impossible for such a large animal to walk off with 2 broken legs in a wide open pasture in broad daylight within 5 minutes and not be seen, right?
Right.
Yet it was nowhere to be found. Now, an hour later, the rancher looked out his window, still trying to figure out what the hell happened to his cow. And lo and behold, the cow had reappeared, laying in almost the exact same spot in the pasture. When the rancher went out and inspected his cow, this time its other 2 legs were broken, and it was dead. Now, the only conclusion the rancher could draw is that something picked up the cow twice and dropped it from altitude. The first drop breaking it, the first 2 set of legs, and the second drop breaking the other 2. Yes, I know. I'm looking at your face on video. I know. So it
sounds like a kid pulling the wings off a fly.
I know, dude. It's
right?
It's malicious. It's
like
mean.
One of those kid malicious evil things that they don't know it's evil.
Exactly.
Right?
It's fucked up. So obviously, whatever's here at Skinwalker Ranch or in the Utah Basin isn't only isolated to Skinwalker Ranch, right? It can affect neighbors.
Is there some sort of galactic, claw machine?
Oh, yeah.
That, I'm trying to fucking get this prize, bro, but it keeps falling, and every time it falls,
exactly what it seems like, doesn't it?
What the fuck?
That's a good example. Exactly.
What the fuck?
Okay. Now, this story was told to NID scientists, right? National Institute Discovery Science. You talked about it, Oscar, by the neighbor while NIDS was working on Skinwalker Ranch under Bigelow.
Yeah.
And the rancher did not want to be named. He wanted to keep his anonymity. So, fucked up. Now we move from cattle. Let's talk about some bulls, right? Bigger, muscular, big, huge things. So there were 4 prize bulls on the property that the Sherman kept, weighing about 2,000 pounds each. We're talking incredibly large, muscular, expensive beasts, right? The bulls, of course, were kept in a corral. Now, one day, Terry and Gwen Sherman were driving by the corral to check on the bulls. And
this was crazy. Sorry.
Yes.
Remember now.
My God. And while they were driving, up to check on the bulls, Gwen turned to Terry and she made mention how terribly sad it would be if something happened to the bulls like what's been happening to their cows. Okay, she made this statement to her husband. They went there, they checked on the bulls were cool. On their return trip, it's never said how long they were gone, but on their return trip, the Shermans drove by once again the bull corral. Only this time, these 4 massive, we're talking, over 8,000 pounds combined, right?
Dude,
these beasts were gone. So immediately, they pulled over, they jumped out of the car because Gwen had just mentioned what a shame it would be if something happened, right? So they jump out of the car. The gates of the corral were shut. There was no sign of break-in, no hoof prints leading away from the corral, no group of people's footprints on the ground like they were stolen. Nothing was amiss. They were just gone. And just like the Angus cattle, I said, these were worth a ton of money, so they were freaking out. It turns out these 4 massive bulls had been crammed into a very small trailer, covered trailer, located a short distance away from the corral. The bulls had been stuffed in there like freaking sardines. And according to the Shermans, when discovered, the bulls seemed like they were in a trance. They weren't moving. They were just sort of staring dumbly. Now, the really creepy thing is that there was only one door on the trailer that they were found in, and it was locked up tight with a lock and chain that it hadn't been used in years.
And it had a step to it, too.
Yes. Oh, good point. Good point. Yeah, not a ramp.
Because I saw it in the documentary. They show it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, in fact, both the door and the lock are said to have been rusted shut.
Yep.
So how the fuck did these massive bulls get into the trailer? It's almost as if whatever entities or whatever it is plaguing Skinwalker Ranch overheard Gwen Sherman telling her husband what a shame it would be if something happened to the bulls. And then it reacted.
You can't joke around. You can't joke around in this area. You can't
but what does that tell us? That raises the question. And again, it proves to me that whatever plagued Skinwalker Ranch is sentient, meaning it can think and react. Yeah. Hell, maybe it could even read minds or emotions or both.
I'm telling you, when we go there, Jay, not if, but when we go there, we got to say on the way out or when we get there, man, I really hope I don't win the lottery.
Man, it would really suck to have a 12-inch dick.
Right. Well, anyway. I really hope I don't develop to be a great pianist one day.
Right, exactly.
Or something, yeah.
But that's what it seems like, right? So anyway, when Terry Sherman banged on the trailer where the bulls were found, that's when they snapped out of their trance. And these big beasts proceeded to freak out. The bulls tore up the entire trailer trying to get out, completely destroyed it. And later on, it was discovered that the bars on the corral where the bulls were being held were highly magnetized for no apparent reason. And then slowly, over a couple hours, the magnetism dwindled and then disappeared.
Yeah. Super weird.
You are not going to peacefully herd 4 massive bulls up a step into a trailer that barely fits them.
And then have them be okay with it until they get, like, there's no way. It's
not going to happen.
Drug that'll happen because the drug will just make them, slouch down and fall down and shit. There's no way. There's no middle ground there. And, it's funny that...
was rusted shut.
Rusted shut, yeah, I know, right? This is David Copperfield shit. This is like David Blaine bullshit magician stuff. This is some insanity that can't be explained.
Yes.
Unless you pay them enough to know the secret. That reminds me of something, and I don't, I'm not 100%, but you can check me. Audience can check me on this. Yeah. Because in the documentary, again, you read the book. I saw a documentary. Yeah. In the documentary, Colm Kelleher, is telling this story that he heard from the Shermans, and he's showing us the whole thing, the playthrough, right on the ranch. He shows us the whole enclosed trailer and everything.
Where the bulls were found.
Right.
Okay.
And I think in that story, I think he mentions how long they were.
Oh,
how
really?
you didn't know how long they were gone when they came back and found them missing.
Yeah.
I think he mentions it, but I'm not 100%, but people can look at it and tell me, because I think they mention it there. It's not 100%. But anyway, I just want to mention that.
No, thank you. Yeah, it's a mind-boggling story. Those bulls would have torn your ass up if you tried to cram them into this small space.
You don't fuck with a fucking 1,000-pound animal like that,
Exactly.
2,000 pounds.
All right. So let's move on from cattle and talk us about some horses. We're going to talk about some horses. So horses have been attacked on Skinwalker Ranch as well. The Sherman kept 2 beautiful horses on the ranch. They'd use them to ride around the ranch and get to areas inaccessible by car, chase cattle, normal rancher shit, right? Well, one afternoon in the summer of 1997, Terry and his wife were driving towards the horse corral. They were about a quarter mile away when they noticed this huge dust cloud hovering over the area where the horses were kept. And wondering just what the hell was going on now, they sped over to the horses and were thunderstruck by what they saw. It was the horses running and kicking about that was causing all this dust cloud. As the Shermans approached the corral, they realized why the horses were freaking out and kicking up dust. The horses weren't alone in the corral. At first, the Shermans thought a dog had gotten into the corral and was chasing the horses around. But as they approached the corral, they quickly realized this wasn't the case at all. There, in the corral, chasing and swatting at the horses was a strange, furry, reddish color animal. It was big and muscular, about 200 pounds, they said, and it had short, stumpy legs and a big, bushy tail, kind of like an embellished foxtail. The animal kind of looked and moved like a hyena, they said, but it had the exact head of a dog, and it was much bigger than any hyena. So no, it wasn't a dog or a fox or a hyena. It was something else. And it was chasing the horses around the corral, swatting at their hindquarters. Terry, got out of his truck and he sprinted towards the corral, very concerned about his horses. And that's when this strange animal stopped, stared at Mr. Sherman, Terry, kind of like, what are you going to do? And then it jumped over the corral bars, ran into an open field, and just disappeared in front of Terry's eyes.
Disappeared, not like disappeared into like the tree line or something.
Correct.
Just fucking vanished.
It was bolt, running, gone. Just gone in an open field. Now, the Shermans searched for this animal for a long time. And when they returned to check on the horses, they found bloody scratch marks on the horses' hindquarters. Wow. Now, based on the size of this mystery beast, it could have easily maimed or killed the horses, but it didn't. It seemed to enjoy terrorizing the horses and taking little swipes at them.
Another
instead.
More of that child mentality of fucking with people, or fucking with things.
Fucking like the pulling the fly wings off. You're right.
Yeah. Also, when you were describing it before you mentioned the dog's head, it kind of reminded me a little like how maybe that 12-year-old testimony confuses for monkeys. But maybe not. But I don't know.
Or it's like it's like taking the imagination of a child.
Yeah, I mean,
and telling them draw a hyena or draw a goofy animal,
right?
And they draw this thing, and now boom, there it is in the fucking corral.
Yeah.
Oh man. Now, interestingly, other ranch hands on Skinwalker Ranch claim to have seen this red beast on separate occasions, as do neighbors living near Skinwalker Ranch. So, what the hell was it?
Yeah. I mean, the whole vanishing thing kind of even. I mean, it feels like my theory might be supported a little more with the timeline, like dropping in, dropping out kind of thing.
Yeah.
It seems like someone's just is fucking with time space itself and just to fuck with people in this place. And because it's so thin, like you mentioned, like a thin area, a veil so thin between realities or between dimensions or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I think it's just like easy prey, easy access for a lot of fucking.
A lot of fuckery.
A lot of fuckery.
Love that term.
One thing I read in Gary and Janice Suyup, or whatever the name is. I forgot. I don't have it. Suyup. They talk about how they can tell you stories, and they have more. I mean, they have more stories than what I mentioned. They can tell you stories all day long, but it doesn't matter because the only way to know for sure is to calm down yourself, and you'll have your own.
That's right.
And even then it's the way to describe it is like it's still a gamble. It's a gamble whether or not you'll feel something, you'll see something, you'll experience something, but it's a good size gamble that you will. It's a good size percentage that you will, like 50. It's opposed to 0.1% in your daily lives. There it's like 50 shot that you'll fucking see something. That's a pretty higher percentage.
Absolutely.
One thing they mentioned that was interesting and kind of morbid maybe, or kind of dark, is that they said that it's a gamble, but it's also a risk. It's a risk to come in there because of what could happen to you. Because you don't know what will happen to you. Some of it's like that tall and dark stuff that I mentioned in that one story that you're going to mention soon. Yes. Some of it could be that weird creature thing. That could not be scratching horses. It could be scratching you. Like, what I'm saying? A UFO could pick you up.
And break your legs, right?
Break your legs. Right. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. God, I fucking love this story, this place.
Yeah.
It scares me, but I love it.
We gotta go there. That's gotta be our next trip.
Yes. I know. I was talking to Joe Erie earlier today and telling him about this place. He's like, dude, we gotta go. So, but yeah, we'll make it a point, man. Bucket list. So now we're going to move away from talking about cattle and horses and discuss another common phenomenon that happens on Skinwalker Ranch, which has been experienced by both the Sherman family and NID scientists. Orbs. And we're not talking about little questionable semi-transparent anomalies most ghost hunters brag about in their photographs that may or may not be bugs or dust. No, we're talking about very large, multiple colored round objects that roam Skinwalker Ranch and seem to have intelligence. It can elicit paralyzing fear in both humans and animals, and it could even kill. Now, one very common orb seen around Skinwalker Ranch is the Blue Orb. Blue orbs have been seen flying around the property by many people, including scientists. The blue orbs are described as about the size of a baseball, sometimes a little bigger, and they seem to contain two bluish liquids mixed with water or some other fluid to give the orbs that oil mixed with water look, that kind of liquid separated, shiny sort of, right.
It looks kind of cool.
And these blue orbs are also said to give off a crackling electric sound as they're flying about. The blue orbs are known to react to people, either fleeing from them or flying straight towards them, kind of like the orbs are inspecting those who encounter them. The blue orbs have been observed emitting a bluish light, casting their light over objects, again, kind of like they're inspecting the objects. Now, these blue orbs have been blamed for killing 3 of the Sherman's dogs, rendering the poor dogs into what the Shermans described as, quote, shortening or, quote, butter. Barely recognizable lumps of mush surrounded by scorched circles. Actually, it was this horrible incident when the Shermans' dogs were reduced to melted lumps of canine flesh that caused the Shermans to throw up their hands and say, fuck it, that's enough. And then they sold Skinwalker Ranch to Robert Bigelow shortly thereafter.
That was enough, huh? That's what
did it.
That one story you mentioned about the horses and stuff and how they thought it was a dog that brought it, they should stop thinking that. They should no longer think a logical reaction or anything.
Exactly.
After
there
cattle
are
and cows. Right.
No earthly explanations anymore.
Right.
Immediately jump to the...
what is it, honey? Probably an orb. Right.
But, I read a number of stories about this incident, and the Shermans were so distraught. These were their 3 favorite dogs, German Shepherds, I believe they were.
Yeah.
And just reduced to nothing. Then they said, fuck it, we're out. Now, a large black orb has been seen flying around the property as well. Now, this black ball or orb is different than the blue ones in that this thing is solid, no liquid look to it, and it's larger than the blue orbs, typically like a basketball in size. And it's said to elicit ominous, scary feelings or vibes in those who encounter it. Okay, so that's another type of orb that's seen. There's also been sightings of a smaller blood red colored orb zooming around the property. The way the stories talk about it, I'm imagining kind of like a golf ball sized object. One time, one of these blood red balls or orbs stirred up a herd of cattle so badly, got them into such a frenzy that the cattle ran themselves off a 15-foot cliff to escape it.
Damn.
Yes. Many of the cattle, of course, were injured, broken legs, or they were trampled by other falling cattle. It's just insane. So those are the type of orbs that are seen. So far, we've talked about cattle mutilations, animals being screwed with in general. We talked about cryptids. We talked about killer orbs. Now, what about straight up fucking monsters? Now, this is a crazy incident. In early 1996, while the Shermans owned Skinwalker Ranch, a man that they described as, quote, a hippie type, basically stormed Skinwalker Ranch, declaring that he was drawn to the property and he absolutely needed to meditate on the property. Now, this guy, this hippie, wouldn't take no for an answer. So, Terry Sherman, he finally relented, and Terry and his son drove the man to a serene location on the property, overlooking a growth of trees. I believe they were cottonwood trees. Anyway, once at the location, this hippie sits down, shuts his eyes, and he begins to meditate, right? Doing his hippie thing. After a short while watching this stranger meditate, unbeknownst to the meditating man, Terry Sherman and his son began hearing these strange noises coming from the trees a short distance away. And they watched as what could only be described as a camouflage being, not unlike the camouflage predator from the movies, came rushing out of the trees, running, no, more like floating at full tilt towards this meditating man. Now, mind you, the hippie guy, he has no idea this is going on. The predator thing gets right up into the guy's face, and he lets out a terrible, what was described as a roar, immediately snapping the guy out of his meditative state and knocking him clean on his back and his ass. Needless to say, this guy, this poor bastard, was so scared, he was crying, shaking, he couldn't walk. Terry Sherman and his son had to physically place the guy shotgun into his own truck and immediately drive him off the property. Now, this story and the bull story, remember, Gwen Sherman said what a shame it would be if something happened to the bulls and then the thing reacted. I think these two incidents prove that whatever's on Skinwalker Ranch is conscious, and it can react to people's state of consciousness. Gwen was upset, right? This guy's meditating. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I don't know if you're really asking me, but I'm going to answer. Yeah, it does prove that. And other stories that, I mean, everything we've been telling kind of proves it in a while in different ways that it's conscious and it's fucking up and stuff. I think we might have to be like very like clear headed when we go in there, Jay. You know what I'm saying? Like, we can't go in there with hangups. We can't go in there with certain negativities. Doesn't it make you think twice about that kind of thinking? Because now it could be reacting to that to the Shermans because they're living on the land, and maybe that's like a certain quality of it. I mean, if we go, we just be visiting tourists. But man, it makes me wonder, like
put your mental baggage aside.
If I go in there and suddenly like, man, I hate the color blue. What the fuck is going to happen?
You're going to be attacked by a blue fucking monster, dude.
Or I go colorblind to the color blue.
Sully from fucking Monsters, Inc.
Oh, wow. That's
come charging at you.
Strange turn.
Strange twist of topic.
A little bit. I think it'd be scary if I just got colorblind to blue suddenly. That would be...
That'd be fucked up. But no, I think you bring up a good point, man. The state of mind that we should be in if we ever.
We can't go in there hating on each other. We can't make fun of each other. We can't we have to be very direct and frank in our thoughts and in our dealings.
Man, it's a great point, dude.
I mean, if we have Dave out there, he would purposely.
Oh shit!
He would purposely bring he would fuck it up. You know
Dave Black, Dave Odd, of course, right?
This is anti-Dave Black. Sorry, this is anti-Dave Black.
Oh no, that would be a bad. That would be a bad person, I think.
I would not want to be with him. No, I would not. I don't know if I could do it. Will these stories? No way.
I think you're right. I think you're right. I don't know. Well, I have another encounter with these things that I've dubbed the tree monsters.
Right.
On the night of March 12th, 1997, one of Robert Bigelow's employees working on Skinwalker Ranch, a famous, Dr. Colm Kelleher, we've talked about him a number of times.
Yeah.
Author of Hunt for the Skinwalker. Colm Kelleher spotted a large humanoid figure perched in a tree on the property. Now, he detailed this account in his book, Hunt for the Skinwalker, and Kelleher said the creature was about 20 feet off the ground and about 50 feet away from him. Keller wrote, quote, "The large creature laid motionless, almost casually, in the tree. The only indication of the beast's presence was the penetrating yellow light of its unblinking eyes as they stared fixedly back into the light," end quote, referring to the headlights of a truck Kelleher was driving. Now, this crazy fucker, Kelleher, he fired at the beast with a rifle, but it fled.
Yeah.
It left claw marks and imprints in the ground when it fled. And Kelleher described the evidence as signs of a bird of prey, maybe a raptor print, but huge. And from the depth of the print, from a very heavy creature. And that was all a quote. Or Kelleher believes that might have been a bona fide skinwalker up there in the tree.
Right.
Now, actually, these tree monsters have been seen on a number of occasions. One time in 1997, another NID scientist who was nameless, encountered one. The scientist described the encounter as this tree creature taking hold of him mentally, and in his head, this NID scientist said that he heard this tree monster say, "quote, we are watching you."
That's
yes, and of course, there's that tree creature that scared the hell out of the hippie guy. And what are these things? And if you remember from the last episode when we described the traits of a skinwalker, one thing it said that it could do is take control of people, get them to do things like hurt themselves or others. This NID scientist claims that the tree monster took control of his mind and put that thought of "we are watching you" into his mind. So I don't know, maybe these things or this thing, I don't know if there's one or many, maybe it's a skinwalker. Who knows?
Right. And then, we got that story, the one I ended with, that guy saying about that woman at 6 a.m. driving, and you see what she describes as 4 of them.
Yes.
4 weird. I mean, she described them as skinwalkers. She called them that. They were indescribable because she saw it up close, but it was difficult to describe them as she was watching them.
Yeah, which is very strange. That's very weird.
Very strange.
That's
and
a really creepy
like,
aspect.
It's almost like watching a live feed version of something blurry, trying to hide their identity, but live, kind of think of that. I think of that way. And that, her fearful state, like knowing without really knowing not to drive fast, and just let them pass before driving, like that kind of thing. And you think of the alien of that guy going inside and outside the building, like it really seems kind of connected. It seems kind of like I said, with Trickster and stuff, like it's all one connected thing. I don't even know what's it defies everything, really.
It really does, man.
Defies
really
all logic, all current logic, I should say. But I'm sure there's a reason for everything. We just don't know it yet.
That's it. We just don't.
That's the real thing. That's the real thing. Logically speaking, there's a reason for everything out there. Everything we can possibly imagine that happened, Murphy's Law, and that will happen eventually, whatever it's called. Yeah, all that could happen. But there's a reason for everything. We just don't know it. We don't know how it works yet.
Haven't figured it out.
Correct. And I don't know if we will in this lifetime, at least. But
Well, maybe that's what the researchers and the government are trying to figure out over there at Skinwalker Ranch.
Skin.
Did I say Scrange?
Skin Ranch is a porn. It's a porn ranch, really. But you had the walker there, right? Yeah.
Let's continue talking about monsters. You like sea monsters or sea serpents?
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm telling you, Skinwalker Ranch has everything. So, and here it comes. There's a 420-acre body of water that almost abuts Skinwalker Ranch. Oscar, it's called Bottle Hollow.
Yeah, it is.
In 1970, the U.S. government created this body of water on Ute land as part of a repayment or settlement to the Ute for the government diverting tribal water for something called the Central Utah Water Project.
Wow.
Basically, taking water from tribal land and diverting it to other non-indigenous people of Utah, right? Not cool. So the government built this body of water as repayment, but almost immediately after its completion, strange things started happening at Bottle Hollow. There have been numerous witnesses, including tribal police, that claim one or more incredibly large snakes, likened to sea serpents, inhabit the waters of Bottle Hollow. According to local police, there has been an unusually high number of drowning deaths at Bottle Hollow, and some of the drownings have officially been blamed on these snakes.
Oh, wow. I'm surprised that one guy from my story survived.
Yeah.
When you think about it, right?
Yeah,
but maybe it was a different time, or that weird alien thing that invaded him and made him lost time, kind of protected him, maybe.
Don't know.
Who can say? But yeah, that's
But
crazy.
now, I got one more story about Bottle Hollow, and I'll bring that one back when I talk about UFOs.
Okay.
Now, let's talk about plain old examples of high strangeness. Stuff that doesn't really have a category, like tree monsters or killer orbs or cattle mutilations. Now, Oscar teased this first story, this first encounter in the last episode. And dude, it's weird. Now, back when Bigelow owned Skinwalker Ranch, a Defense Intelligence Agency scientist witnessed, quote, in the living room of a former NIDS double-wide observation trailer and staff quarters, a multicolored 3D object appear in midair. And the scientist watched this thing as it changed shapes, like a changing topological figure. In other words, a figure that could be twisted, deformed, and stretched without actually breaking a topological image. Then it disappeared.
Yeah.
First it changed in these shapes without breaking. It went from a pretzel shape to a Mobius Strip shaped, and then the thing disappeared. And now, just so you guys know, because I sure as hell didn't know what it was, a Mobius strip is a surface with one continuous side formed by joining the ends of a rectangular strip after twisting one end of the strip to 180 degrees. Okay, Let me explain that a little better. In the last episode, I gave the example of a Mobius strip equated to a tailor's tape measure, that felt tape measure that could conform to the curves of your body when you go to a tailor to get a suit or a dress made.
Yeah.
That felt measuring tape. That's kind of what I want you to describe. Now you take that measuring tape and you stretch it out as far as it'll go. Okay, so you have a long, rectangular, flexible piece of material. You take that material, you twist it, just 180, and then you bring it back together at the ends. That's a Mobius strip. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's what they saw.
It's also used in high, I mean, I can't even begin to describe it because I'm not a scientific mathematician or anything, but it's used as in really high quantum theories about some sort of like in developing models for machinery that doesn't yet exist.
Oh shit!
You know, I've seen it in some examples along the way of reading other things. You know, when you think of MIT theories and works and stuff like that, it's in geometry and in mathematics in general. Like it's a strange thing, the Mobius strip, and it's used kind of sparingly, you know, in general. Like it's not like useful for a lot of things that we know day to day, but it's useful for a lot of things in understanding like the universe or like the math of the universe or like, you know, things like that. I'm not even I'm sorry. I would just be lying if I started explaining things.
Right. No, but
I don't know, but
that they do use this thing, the model of this
to
thing,
help explain certain rights. It's very strange.
Cool. Yeah, well, that's apparently what fucking showed up and then disappeared and changed color and did all sorts of crazy things right in the middle of a trailer in front of a scientist.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Like egging the fucking scientists.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Toying with them, fucking with them. Now, more high strangeness. Strange voices have been heard all throughout the property. People who hear these voices claim they're speaking an unknown language or possibly a mix between Russian and Native American. And the voices often sound like they're coming from up above, in the sky, just above the people's heads. Now, one story related by Terry Sherman, his son and his nephew, says that one day while they were standing in a pasture just sort of talking, they heard two voices started to speak just above their heads.
What?
One voice was described as deep and resonant, and the other voice was a higher pitched voice. This is the instance where the voices could have been something along the lines of Russian or Native or maybe a combination.
Okay.
When the three men yelled out, "Yay, we could hear you," they say the voices stopped just for a moment, and then the deep resonant voice sounded a low rumbling laugh, and then the ethereal conversation started up again.
What?
I know. If you can see Oscar's face right now, yes. I know. Dude, I just got the chills too.
So like...
what the fuck, dude?
No, let's imagine this. Let's imagine it. Let's play it out real quick. I want people to really understand this. Jay, you're the Shermans.
I'm the Shermans.
So Nancy busts out the gun, see, and then she tried to put the fucking thing in. Now you say, I can fucking hear you.
Hello, we can hear you.
Now let's go back talking. And then so she pulled the gun in. Like,
exactly.
What the fuck?
That's
what kind
exactly.
of reaction is that? I mean, so I gave the Mrs. Kerbopple laugh from there, but yeah, I mean, it's probably much more dark and serious. But yeah, it's like, dude,
isn't it? That's some scary shit, man.
I should say Miss Kerbopple. She never married. I think she married Ned Flanders at some point, but that's not the point.
Yeah. But you're right. They're just having this strange conversation. They can't make out what it's saying.
Oh.
And they say, "Hey, dude, we could hear you," and the thing fucking laughs at them, and then just picks right back up having the conversation. The ethereal conversation. I don't get it, man.
Out of all the ones, that one I can believe that we have some sort of technology that can do that. I can imagine like we have some sort of sonar technology of some sort that can transmit something like that and make it seem like it's above you. I'm not saying that's what's happening here, but I get the ones we have here, and that one seems like the only one that we have technology for it, at least in a non-secret government way. I mean, we have the technology to do that and do that kind of like trickery and manipulation. But that's really weird.
It's very strange. Yeah. Yes. The Shermans and other witnesses claim to have heard the sounds of heavy machinery coming from under the ground at Skinwalker Ranch. Sounds that are described like a steel mill or a train station, only under the ground. There's actually... Yes, and there's newspaper articles dating from around the 1950s describing this very same thing. People complaining about strange metallic sounds coming from under the ground of the Uinta Basin, which leads a lot of people to believe that there is something under the ground at Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah, the fucking Morlocks.
Yeah, the Morlocks, exactly.
That's what it is. It's the fucking Morlocks.
Is it a race of people? Is it an ancient alien base? Some unknown type of advanced machinery? Something else?
Dude, no. It's a different time. We're glimpsing sounds from the future of an underground world. And that's what's happening. We're just getting an echo of it. They're getting echoes of a future where like either they don't live on top anymore or they can't live on top on the surface anymore, or has been dug that much more deep underground over the many years of people living on it. That is where like wherever their city is located, wherever the railroad, whatever they're doing is located, happens to be lower sea level than the Uinta Basin is today. I mean, so many theories. Obviously, I'm not saying I'm right, but it feels.
No, but I love the theories you're coming up with in this episode. That's fantastic.
Because people don't measure. Because you do a time lapse video on the geographical changes of, let's say, Chicago, right? Over 10 years, it's probably very incremental, very not much, right? It's very little. But you do it over 1,000 years, it looks like a huge difference. It's
absolutely.
Up and down. It's changing over topologically for many reasons, and maybe it goes in steady in one direction only, or steady in direction one, well, whatever it is. Maybe it fluctuates, but it does over many times.
Yeah.
Oh, that could fucking be this too. I don't know.
Well, it actually, speaking about underground and these sounds, it's a known fact that you absolutely should not dig into the ground on Skinwalker Ranch. And actually, this was a stipulation in the sales contract when the Myers family sold the property to Terry and Gwen Sherman. Written into the sales contract was absolutely no digging on the property. No reason was given why the Shermans couldn't dig, just that they couldn't. And this tradition has stuck all the way up to its current owner. If you dig, something bad will happen.
To the person who's digging, or like what?
Either to the person who's digging or to
the land
on the property in general. Yes. And we'll see later, something crazy did happen to Terry Sherman when he was digging some post holes for a fence, when he was repairing a fence on the property.
What happened? I'm sorry.
I'll get there. Okay. I promise. I'll get there. Which brings us to another phenomenon that takes place at Skinwalker Ranch. The portals.
Yeah, that was really good.
Now, this is probably my favorite section because it is some weird shit. Now, again, we're still in the category I put of high strangeness, right? Mm-hmm. Terry and Gwen Sherman witnessed on numerous occasions circular openings in the sky above Skinwalker Ranch. The openings are described as looking like orangish colored doorways in the sky. And probably more disturbing than the doorways in the sky is the small craft that were seen coming through the doorways and into our world. And after emerging from the doorways in the sky, the aircraft would circle Skinwalker Ranch, shooting beams of light onto the ground, as if the crafts were surveying the ground or what's under the ground in the ranch, right? Then they vanish back in the doorways. The crafts were described as small and stealthy, with squarish short wings. Yes. In another instance where the orange doors were seen in the sky, Terry Sherman claims that on the other side of the doorway, he could see a bright blue sky. The problem is, when Terry saw these particular doors, it was at night. It's like he was witnessing another dimension or a whole other world on the other side of those doors.
And that the other door happens to be daytime.
Yes.
Or something like that, right?
And of course, high strangeness, rolling on, continuing. Terry and Gwen were surveying their property one evening using some binoculars, looking for like cattle, making sure cattle were where they should be.
Yeah.
Now, as Gwen was spanning the property, she noticed what she described as and this is a quote, a square lighted structure, end quote, sitting on the ground, and sitting next to the structure was a heavyset man. Now the structure and the man promptly disappeared, but a short time later, the structure reappeared in the same spot. This time, Terry and Gwen focused on this object using a 60-power spotting scope, a device commonly used for hunting or surveying, right? When they focused on this structure with this high-powered device, they were shocked to see that standing next to it was a huge 6-foot to 7-foot tall being dressed in all black, like a uniform, with a visor or something shiny covering its face. I'm telling you, man, this place is insane. We gotta go to Skinwalker Ranch.
Like a welder or something? What the fuck?
Right. No, it continues now.
Yeah.
On yet another night, it was a snowy night, Gwen Sherman was sitting in the homestead, looking out her living room window, sort of eyeball surveying the ranch, right? When she noticed off in the distance a glowing RV-sized object, like a mobile home. The object had a window, and inside the window, Gwen saw a desk. As she watched this strange sight, Gwen claims to have seen a large black figure wearing something on its head like a black helmet or a visor walk into view and sit down at the desk. The figure then turned and looked directly at Gwen. It stood up, and that's when Gwen got an even better look at it. It was wearing a black uniform and tall black boots. The being then walked to a large door in the object and stood there staring at Gwen. And that's when she decided that's enough, and she stopped looking. The next day, when Terry and Gwen went to the investigate the area where this RV-sized object was found, they found a huge set of flat-bottom boot prints, size 18 in size, in the snow, right where the RV object's door would have been the night before. Now, this is what I'm saying. When you say, Oscar, that there's a controller, someone pushing the buttons, doing freaky shit, what if it's these things, these tall beings with the boots and the uniform sitting at a fucking desk?
You know what they kind of seem like? Sorry, I'm standing up a little bit. They kind of seem like an evolution version of us in the future, because we're only getting taller. In the evolution from Neanderthals to now, we're getting taller. Like I'm taller than I'll ever be than my ancestors, species-wise, Homo sapien, whatever.
Sure.
And even from before then or during that time from now. Like I feel like one of those things, like that's a taller like version of it where they probably have manipulated time and quantum physics all nailed down and figured out and shit. And they're scoping the area out, or he's like a worker bee and to the control panel that's fucking up everything in the area. Or maybe they're investigating this thin area in the past with what they know in the future, whatever they know, to like find some crucial answers or to discover how we used to be as humans in the past. That's all very interesting part. I don't know,
Very
but it seems like it's futuristic. The fact that he's so tall and huge, and the boots,
the visor or helmet or something.
It reminds me of this story of this movie that I saw. I'm not gonna get super into it, but essentially, it's about this group of teenagers who get stuck in this, I guess, this cave that's separated from time itself. Like you in that cave, one day in that cave equals to like 100 years.
Oh shit!
Like passing by the world. So they go into it too long, and they go into this alternate, like way distant future, right? And humans from this world, from this future, come at some point to save them, and that these humans are like clearly 2 heads taller than the tallest of them.
Oh no shit!
And that's part of their evolution. The fact, and all their equipment matches that. And I'm not saying they're wearing the same thing this person that Sherman saw, but it reminds me of that in a way where like you can see like a future, like they live in space now, but like in this movie, of course, it's a dumb movie, but it kind of reminds me of that. It kind of reminds me like a future where like the comparisons
right
is it's very like different and polar different and stuff. So
I don't know either, man. I don't know what this means. I don't know who that is, what these things are, what it's doing, why it's sitting at a fucking desk. You know what I'm saying? That's the story. And remember, no.
I hope he got overtime for it. That's all.
Yeah, right. Nothing that I've read, and I'm sure you could agree, Oscar, calls the Sherman's credibility and honesty and authenticity into question. Not a single one. For all intents and purposes, these people are to be believed, and this is what they're claiming.
I mean, you know, it's not like that one story we covered. I don't remember who it was or what it was. It was some murder we covered, some like weird murder where this guy killed with a shotgun, I think, a bunch of people in his house. And there was some weird stories. It was a famous Amityville. Was it Amityville?
Yeah.
And how one family was making shit up and shit, and it wasn't corroborated at all and all that stuff. And that led to a lot of other theories and superstitions and stuff. One case was real in that house and one wasn't.
Yeah.
This isn't that, you know, because the Shermans are backed up by everyone that lives around the fucking area. You know, this ain't that. It's common there. To them, like you saying it's some logical reason, that's what's crazy there.
Yeah.
To say like, it's probably just a dog.
Right.
No, it's not just a dog. It's something else. Oh, it's the wind blowing. No, it's not the wind blowing. It's some fucking crazy monkey. It's some crazy orb or whatever. Like that's monkey. That's a stupid answer to say something logical.
That's right.
You know? Right. Yeah.
Amen.
It's funny.
All right. Continues. According to George Knapp, right, investigative journalist and radio host on Coast to Coast AM, and someone who was present on Skinwalker Ranch during the time Robert Bigelow owned the property. Knapp said that while using infrared technology to survey a section of Skinwalker Ranch at night, 2 PhD scientists working for NIDS saw what they described as, quote, a dirty snowball-looking orb, end quote, down on a ridge. Now, these scientists watched through their infrared technology this dirty snowball orb stretch horizontally until it resembled a glowing tunnel, at which time the scientists saw a 7 to 8 foot tall black featureless humanoid being emerge from the tunnel, and they looked on in terror as the being took off and disappeared over a mesa situated on Skinwalker Ranch in our world. The tunnel then closed up, or it disappeared, and that was it. 2 NID scientists claim to have witnessed a creature step out through what could only be described as a portal and take off running into our world, and they never saw it going back. What the hell was it, and where did it go?
How tempted are you to like fucking bum rush that portal to try to get through it? How tempted are you?
Man, I don't know, dude. I don't know. I desperately want to see it.
I don't have kids.
I don't think okay, well there you go. Fair enough. I probably wouldn't, but I desperately want to see it. I would never approach it, but I would give anything to see it.
Even if the other side has no like oxygen for me to breathe, I whatever I see in my last breath might be worth it. Man, that's kind of cool. That's kind of like insanity. Now to let loose some sort of being out there to either investigate or fucking, what do they call it in the old days? Prospecting. The prospecting for materials they don't have anymore.
Yeah.
Right. You think of gold. You had that gold angle before.
We talked about that. Yeah.
It could be that, dude. That seems like that's the closest one for this, in my opinion, that feels right. it's the gold and the Anunnaki stuff. It feels like it's that.
Mm.
You know, I mean, out search for prospecting or understanding something, and this thin layer is like the closest airport portal.
Oh, there you go.
You know what I'm saying? Things like that. Maybe something like that.
Interesting.
I'm just trying to find logic to these actions sometimes because, no, just to the reasons why they're behind. Like, I'm not saying I can't describe anything. We can't. We don't know.
Right.
But I feel like there's got to be some design to it. There's got to be something.
It's fun to theorize, man. It's fun to try to put some logic to it. But like you said, it's impossible, man. It just defies all known logic.
For all I know, for all we know, Jay, maybe you know the whole feeling of this entity pulling wings off a fly, like, you know, that whole mentality we were saying, like how it feels that way. Maybe it's all like a big like misdirection. It could be a huge misdirection to do real things that they're trying to seek out, but instead of having them focus on one thing, it's one thing, you know, like a needle in a haystack, of the haystack being a lot of different shit that they're releasing, just so they won't focus on the one or two or three several important things that they actually want to do. Man,
I wish I knew what those important things were.
Right. Well, I've been saying this portal could be one of those important things, and they're like, and it follows an orb, it follows a cattle mutilation, it follows an ice frozen circle on the lake.
Yeah.
You know, but I
don't know.
Yeah.
Well, here's one last thing that I'll classify as high strangeness, and maybe it classifies, but on certain nights, and this harkens back to a story you said, Oscar, on certain nights, the entire Sherman homestead would be bathed in a white light coming from above. And at other times, beams of white light seem to shine up from the ground and up into the night sky on Skinwalker Ranch. Remember you said the one woman came out in her kitchen and there was bright lights and the house was kind of bathed. Yes. Same thing here.
Not to mention the lady in the truck that caused her friend to die from cancer and get those deep red burns. You know, that was also a very bright light.
Yes.
That caused that to that one person, Charlie Wynn, I think that was his name. And that also harkens back to a movie we mentioned in the last episode, which is Close Encounters of the Third Kind. When he looks out of his truck and our famous railroad crossing scene, when he gets his first alien experience, half of his face, the half that lit his face, is
beet red.
It's beet red, yeah.
Good call.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk about some of the UFO stuff I found. Now, UFOs have been seen hovering over and around not only Skinwalker Ranch, but over the entire Utah Basin itself, right?
Yeah.
The UFOs have been documented for generations by the natives in the area and by early Spanish explorers. This goes back far. There's news or articles written about them going back decades. And of course, the Shermans witnessed them, as did neighbors and NID scientists. And the types of UFOs seen on or around the property are many. There's the large black triangle UFOs, witnessed silently floating over Skinwalker Ranch and the Uintah Basin. These black triangles have either a single light or multiple multicolored lights blinking from its underside. And sometimes these multicolored lights will shoot down light beams onto the ground, and it appears that they're scanning the ground for something before the lights disappear. Now, one night, as witnessed by a NID scientist, an unknown craft was seen flying very close to and then disappearing behind a ridge that runs one side of Skinwalker Ranch, known as Skinwalker Ridge. Now, right before this craft was seen, this is nighttime, the entire Skinwalker Ridge lit up as if from a super high-powered set of LED lights. And the lights were almost in a pattern, moving from left to right before disappearing and returning Skinwalker Ridge to complete nighttime blackness. Of course, there's not an earthly cause for this strange light show. There's nothing there. So Skinwalker Ridge goes back to black. Then all of a sudden, this craft appears as a bright oblong shape in the night sky. It flies right towards Skinwalker Ridge and then disappears behind it. Was it a UFO making a landing inside Skinwalker Ridge, behind it? That's what some people think, but who knows? If that's not strange enough, remember we talked about Bottle Hollow twice already. Remember with the sea serpents and things? Well, witnesses also claim to have seen large glowing objects splash down into the waters of Bottle Hollow, only to fly right back out a few seconds later and take off into the night sky. USOs, in other words, unidentified submersible objects.
Kind of rare, yeah.
Yeah. In a few of these instances, the USOs seem to have either originated at Skinwalker Ranch, or I should say above Skinwalker Ranch, or they took off towards Skinwalker Ranch after reemerging from the waters at Bottle Hollow. Crazy, crazy, crazy.
Kind of goes deeper into that thing, maybe like, I don't know. No, I don't know. I mean,
yeah. I got nothing.
I
know.
But I do have something, but it's dumb. Yeah, it's so.
Well, we got more.
Yeah.
Other reported UFOs have been described as silver disc-shaped, kind of like classic UFO. On numerous occasions, people have seen large, very intense balls of fire streaking through the skies over the Utah Basin.
That connects two stories of mine.
Yes. Yes. And they're much bigger than, what do they call them? Shooting stars. You know what I mean? These are big fucking balls of fire with no impact, that just come out of nowhere and they disappear, but people have seen it. They swear it. And then there's just the odd, bright, random lights seen in the night sky, ones with no obvious source. Now, as a special bonus for you listeners, we're going to play an interview I conducted with a man who actually witnessed strange lights in the night sky over the Uinta Basin. Now, his name is Roger Mitchell. Now, Roger, he's from Utah, lives just north of Salt Lake City, approximately 2.5 hours from the gates of Skinwalker Ranch. I'm going to let him tell his story, but just so you know, on the night in question, Roger was hunting and camping in the Uinta Basin and was about 50 miles as the crow flies from Skinwalker Ranch. Roger's trip to the basin was normal and run-of-the-mill. He's been doing it for years, decades. It was normal and run-of-the-mill until it wasn't. And just a quick note for our beautiful patrons, you guys will be able to see Roger's interview in the video version of this episode, available only for Patreon supporters. Now, Oscar, can we roll my interview with Roger, please?
So I would say that it was, I've been going out there since, probably about 1980. I was just a little bit, you had to be 16 years old to hunt big game and actually carry a rifle in Utah. Wow. And so Dad started dragging us out there when we were too young to hunt. And I think that was just to get us to do all the work and lifting and putting up the tent, all that good stuff.
Sure.
But it was, it really grew my appreciation for the outdoors and kind of molded what my passions are today. And they're all centered around hunting and fishing and really outdoor activities. But anyway, it was, I guess, probably about 15 years after I had first been introduced to the Book Cliffs area of eastern Utah. A good friend of mine who had just moved in next door to me, his name was Rick, and his family and mine became fairly close. The Air Force moved him to Utah, and so we were started out. We were just going on quick hunting trips together, hunting birds, fishing, whatever, ice fishing. It didn't matter. We enjoyed spending time together outdoors, and so I never invited a lot of people along with my father on my hunting trips, because if you're going to spend 10 nights in the wilderness with people, you better like them. And because there's a lot of dead time, right?
Right.
So anyway, Rick started pestering me a little bit. Hey, I'd like to go out there hunting with you and your old man and all this. And so next thing you know, he's coming along with us for about 5 years. And so anyway, we're out there one night, and like we would do, night after night would just kind of repeat itself. You get done hunting your ass off all day, and you end up coming back to camp and unloading the pack or whatever and cleaning up a little bit. And it was, I remember it was before dinner, but it was still very, very dark. So it was probably about 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, right after daylight savings ends. So it gets dark about 6:15 out there. in the evening. So we're sitting at the campfire, and man, all the details are just so vivid because I remember we were sitting on the east side of the campfire ring, if you can picture that, and we were both kind of looking west. Chairs are probably 2 or 3 feet apart, and we're just talking about everything. The day, hey, where did you go? Where did you hunt? What did you see? Did you see any sign? Things like that, and kind of planning our attack for the next day. All right, let's go over here. There seems to be some activity, that sort of thing. So we're sitting there just BSing and planning for the next morning's hunt. And Dad's off in the kitchen tent making dinner. He became our camp chef more than an avid hunter. As he got up there in years, he just enjoyed going along and cooking. But so Rick and I are sitting there, and it was a crystal clear night. One of those nights where there's no, and you don't have any light noise. So every star is just brilliant, bright stars everywhere. And we're just sitting there kind of glancing up, and we had actually mentioned, man, what a beautiful clear night. There, you can't even see a whisper of a cloud, and it was still, there was no wind, no nothing. And the reason I mentioned we were sitting on the east side of the fire pit is because it would have come from behind us, directly behind us, going east to west across the night sky. 3 distinct, they were, it's hard to explain because when you think of bright lights in the sky, you think of a bright light that kind of diffuses, or something that's so brilliant that, maybe a focal point that kind of gets diffused a little bit. But I don't know if I'm explaining that well enough. But what we saw was actually a series of bright lights that would blink, and then that series of lights would progress across the sky from east to west in a series. And so, it would start behind you, and we both, well, I assume he was looking up. I can't say for sure, but I know he saw the same thing I saw. And right. we looked up, and then after about, maybe 6 seconds tops, we just kind of looked at each other, and I looked at him, and we think of ourselves as rational men. Sure. We don't get caught up in a lot of nonsense. That's the way we talk about it to this day. I looked at him, I said, "Did you see what I see? What I just saw?" And he says, "Explain it to me first." He says, "I want to make sure it jives with what I just saw." Yeah. And we're sitting there talking about it, and he says, he half jokingly says, "I don't think we can tell anybody about this. They're going to think we've been drinking too much around the campfire." Right. And we may have had a few cold ones, but certainly we weren't hammered. But anyway, going back to it, it was just rapidly, just 1, 2, 3, and then it would progress in the sky, and then 1, 2, 3, and then progress in the sky. And you could watch it for clear to the horizon. You could see those. We would estimate, we've talked about it so many times, we estimated that maybe it was 3,000 feet, 4,000 feet above ground. Okay. But boy, it's hard to say because all it is a night sky with these lights. But that thing, as far as you could see clear to the horizon, there was some mountains off to the west. Clear to the horizon, you could keep seeing them as they went further and further away. But I'll tell you what, I've never seen an aircraft that can move that fast. And I live by Hill Air Force Base, where there's fighter jets taking off and landing constantly. And I had just never seen, I don't know if it was multiple vessels, whether it was one with a series of lights on it, but the distance between the blinks was the same. And that thing was getting across the sky pretty darn quick. And it was just unlike anything I'd ever seen in my entire life.
And of course, as you said, you've been going out there for forever in that area.
Into that same area, we typically, we hunt. It's a very vast area that's 50 miles east and west by about 30 miles north and south. This area we hunt between the Colorado border and then in towards some land that you can't get on. You've got just a big 50-mile swath of land that you can get on that runs east and west. And so we've been going to the same area of that Book Cliff area for, like I said, 40 years. But yeah, something that I have to this day never seen anything like it. And, in my mind, we were trying to rationalize it. Hey, I wonder if we're on plane for like Area 51 in Nevada. I wonder if that's where that's headed. It might be the same north and south,
That's interesting. I'll have to research that. Yeah.
So I'm sitting there thinking, I wonder. And it's like, I don't know. I can't explain it, and I'm not telling anybody. That's what we told each other.
Yeah, well, I certainly appreciate you sharing it with our listeners. Any sound? Was there any sound?
Absolutely no sound, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's one thing that we commented on at the time was there was absolutely no sound at all.
Damn.
And then we thought, man, maybe that thing's moving so fast, the sound's going to come. Maybe it's further off than we thought.
Like a sonic boom.
Yeah, or it was so high that we just couldn't hear it. And our calculation of how high it was in the air was completely off. I don't know.
Yeah.
But absolutely silent. There was absolutely no sound involved.
And these were white lights or different colored lights?
Bright white. Yeah.
Bright white.
Bright white light. And when I say bright, I mean the stars look bright that time, that time of night when it's pitch black and the sky's closed. But this was like today's LED light technology that's so bright and finely focused, I guess, is a word that I would use. It was just uniquely focused. They looked like 3 super bright LED dots, just boom, 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 and then progressing, boom, boom, boom. And
wow.
And perfectly going east to west. So I don't know where they were headed, but they were getting there in a pretty good amount of time.
That's incredible. And what year was this roughly?
It's got to be 95. Because Rick moved away shortly after that. They moved to Minnesota, but it would have been 94 or 95.
Okay.
I'm almost confident. I'm pretty sure it was 95, the fall of 95.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
And of course, this Book Cliff area is part of the Uinta Basin.
Yeah. It's
correct.
All, when you go out there, it's if you look at a topographical map of Utah and you're out there, where Highway 40 goes from Utah into Colorado, that goes right through the heart of the Uinta Basin. But just south of Highway 40 and between I-70, that also parallels 40, I-70s, after those Book Cliffs drop off about 2,000 feet to the desert floor, that's where I-70 is. So,
okay.
So it just kind of slowly climbs out to a big shelf, if you will, and then drops off from the south. And that's what they consider the Uinta Basin. It's a pretty vast kind of plateau out there.
Got it. Now, before we jumped on the microphones, we were sort of talking off air. You had heard about Skinwalker in the past. Do you know how far you were physically from where you know to be Skinwalker Ranch today?
I would say as the crow flies, a direct distance, it was probably 45 miles.
Okay.
Between 40 and 50, something like that.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Not super far away.
Right.
Okay.
And nothing but dirt roads between.
Wow. Yeah. And I'll tell you, that's one of the main phenomena that happens within the Uinta Basin area is these unexplained lights in the sky. Everything from physical crafts have been seen that don't match any of the descriptions of stuff we know about today, to orbs of light flying around in the sky, to triangular UFOs with different color running lights. You name it, it happens up in the sky around the Uinta Basin and the Skinwalker Ranch area. So your story fits right in line with what people have been seeing for centuries.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
No, it's and through it all, I can tell you that area out there is without a doubt my favorite place on this earth. It's there's something special about just that wilderness out there, and maybe it's just all the flat tires I've had because the hundreds of miles of dirt roads out there.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why.
No, that's amazing. At any point were you guys scared by what you saw in the sky?
No, absolutely not. It was, I just remember that long pause because we were sitting there talking about the day's events and, like you do around a campfire and just kind of BSing about that. And then there was just this pause that lasted 6 to 10 seconds where we just, both of our heads were looking skyward and then we looked at each other and we didn't know what to say. And it was just one of those moments, it was, 25 years ago, but in fact, I talked to Rick. We talk maybe once a year on the phone now. We don't connect that often, but it's funny. He says, "Hey, you seen any weird stuff out hunting?" It's still one of the first things we talk about.
Amazing.
And, yeah.
I guess before we close, I'll just ask: have you ever seen anything terrestrial while you're out there hunting? Just what Rick was asking you, right? Anything strange on the ground?
Yeah, I would say no, I haven't found anything out of the ordinary. Not what you wouldn't normally see out, stumbling across skeletons and things of animals. And
I was going to ask, wait a minute,
make it through the winter or something, but nothing out of the ordinary that I can think of. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Well, Roger, I want to thank you very much for sharing your story with the podcast and our listeners. On with the show. Pretty cool interview, right? I love how Roger said it looked like the lights were moving in the direction of Area 51 over in Nevada. Who knows? And this sequence of lights, the lights that he was talking about, sound like it could have been, these, I'll just call them running lights that people describe on these UFO, triangle UFOs. I don't know, man. And the quickness that he said these lights cleared the entire horizon reminds me a lot of what we witnessed over on ET Highway when we took the podcast on the road to Area 51.
Yeah.
How that object would fly across the entire horizon, which could be, I don't know, thousand miles. I don't know how far you could see horizon to horizon, right?
It'd be millions of miles.
Who knows?
Yeah.
And it would do it in seconds. Same thing with Roger's story. So I think it's super fucking cool that we actually have a person that I know that's witnessed what we've been talking about.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So that's what I have over, UFO topic. Let's talk about poltergeist activity. This one's really strange. Remember I talked about digging on the property is a big no-no? You don't dig on Skinwalker Ranch.
I can't wait to think I bring a shovel, by the way.
Now, Terry Sherman, while he owned the property, wanted to repair a fence. So he started digging holes with a post hole digger. Now, a post hole digger, it's a fairly heavy piece of equipment. And Terry Sherman's digger was about 70 pounds, right? So it's not a light piece of equipment. At one point, Terry stops to wipe sweat off his face and grab a tool from his truck. And when he goes back to start digging again, the post hole digger is gone. This 70-pound piece of equipment is nowhere to be found. Now, this digger turns up a few days later, 75 feet up in a cottonwood tree located elsewhere on the property. Do not dig. Isn't that fucking crazy?
Would you dig?
I think I would. I think I would put a little hole in the ground.
Yeah. Enough for a post.
I have today's story about digging, which I'll get into towards the end here. I'm getting towards the end.
Okay.
Then so I don't know if that's poltergeist activity, if that's, the ghosts don't like digging. I don't fucking know. But I put it into poltergeist activity because that's a sign of poltergeist activity, objects disappearing and then reappearing at random places later. So there's the ranch house itself, the homestead, where the Shermans lived, where the Myers lived, right? While the Shermans lived there, they would be woken up at night by heavy footsteps right outside their bedroom door. no one was stomping around the house. They'd see shadows of humanoid shapes in the house when no one was around. Items would go missing. Pots, pans, spatulas, brushes, tools, the post hole digger, only to turn up later in weird places, like in the microwave or in the freezer, or in the post hole digger's case, 75 feet up in a tree. Typical poltergeist activity, right?
What is a poltergeist? Sorry.
It's German for noisy ghost.
Okay.
It's a trickster, kind of malicious ghost that could fling things. It could manipulate physical objects, move things, in this case, like the Shermans.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because I'm sure some people out there may not know exactly.
Yeah, no, good call. It's a pain in the ass is what it is. It's a dickhead ghost.
It's a Bart Simpsons of ghosts.
Yes. It's like the second Simpsons reference from you tonight. I like it.
Well, I mean, it wasn't fresh in my head, so.
So that's what I have about past stories. Let's bring up to present day and Skinwalker Ranch's newest owner, Brandon Fugel. Now, we got into Fugel in the last episode, who he is and his possible connections to Adamantium Holdings. And I love it. Oscar found a clip of a journalist interviewing somebody about Robert Bigelow and his maybe connections to Adamantium Holdings and Adamantium Real Estate. Oscar, could you play that clip real quick? It's like 5 minutes.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So I got that recorder on now. So I got a phone call a couple days ago from Diana Salazar at the legal department at Bigelow Aerospace, and she wanted to let me know that Robert Bigelow wanted a retraction in our paper clarifying and saying that Robert Bigelow is not whatsoever associated with Adamantium Real Estate. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to need to see some positive proof that that's the case. She said, well, I can't do that. You just have to take our word for it. So, and also the other situation was, our articles, said that, and this is directly from the audio recording of that July 18th meeting, you said, word for word, this ranch has been owned by Robert Bigelow with Bigelow Aerospace, and he has been of the attitude that he will do what he wants, when he wants, how he wants, and if you don't like it, you can sue him. Fortunately, he has brought on an additional individual who, for business purposes, has to remain anonymous. This individual would like to do everything legally, would like to be a good partner with the county, would like to make sure everything is on the up and up. So that indicates that Robert Bigelow, plus a business owner or a businessman who has to remain anonymous, is in ownership of Adamantium Real Estate, which is something that now Robert Bigelow is denying and says is not the case. But, for as much as I can do, we're not able to get here at the paper any positive proof of who owns Adamantium Real Estate. And I understand if that's the case, and you've been very clear with Rob and myself that you can't say who owns it. I understand that. So what we're going to have to do is run an article that explains to readers, okay, because Robert Bigelow is disputing this. We have to represent their side ethically. So we need to run an article that says, okay, Robert Bigelow is disputing that he has anything to do with Adamantium Holdings. I just wanted to get your perspective on that quote of yours that I read from the July 18th meeting. Are you maintaining that's an accurate statement?
Will you read it word for word one more time?
Yes. This ranch has been owned by Robert Bigelow with Bigelow Aerospace, and he has been of the attitude that he will do what he wants, when he wants, how he wants, and if you don't like it, you can sue him. Fortunately, he has brought on an additional individual who, for business purposes, has to remain anonymous. This individual would like to do everything legally, would like to be a good partner with the county, would like to make sure everything is on the up and up.
Okay, so I stand by that quote 100%. No clarifications needed.
Mm-hmm.
And I will just add the comment that the statement about Bigelow being of the attitude of doing what he wants, when he wants, how he wants, and if you don't like it, you can sue him. That is the attitude portrayed by individuals that knew him. That is not my opinion. That is the opinion expressed by those that knew him and had worked with him in the area.
Okay.
So that opinion that I stated in there directly regarding Bigelow is what was told to me.
Yeah, and I will absolutely.
Individuals that had worked, not individuals inside the ranch, but individuals in the community.
Yeah, I will be sure to include that clarification in there.
So that being said, I stand by that statement 100%.
Okay. And, you know, I will ask again, totally understand, regardless of what your answer is, are you able to give me any sort of yes or no as to whether Robert Bigelow is a owner of adamantium real estate, totally forgetting about whoever the other anonymous person is?
I will just stand by the comment that I made in the county commission meeting and state that is correct.
Okay. Well, hey, Thomas, I really appreciate you taking the time.
My statement that I made in the meeting was correct.
Yes, yeah, correct. The statement that you made in the meeting. Yeah, no, I understand.
Yeah, not your question or your statement, but the statement I made in county commission is correct.
Correct. Yeah, no, that's how I took that. No worries. Hey, thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
No problem. Have a great day.
Yep, you as well. See ya.
Bye.
There's a couple interesting things about this clip, we think, right? One is the connection between Robert Bigelow and this mysterious adamantium holdings and adamantium real estate. Remember, we mentioned in the last episode, there's also an adamantium holdings in Guyana, which was the 5th largest producer of gold in Guyana. I believe it was in 2015, right? Yes. And we went down major rabbit holes with that whole Guyana connection. So this clip is trying to bring parallels, ownership, involvement between Bigelow and adamantium holdings. And the person being interviewed is pretty much denying it, or they can't say whether or not it's true, right?
Right. Their statement, yeah.
To me, the person being interviewed, which the interviewer calls Thomas, to me, that really sounds like this Brandon Fugel guy that is the current owner of Skinwalker Ranch. Now, whether Brandon Fugel is adamantium holdings or he's just a figurehead, we don't know. They're not saying. But I thought that clip that you found was fantastic to what we were trying to say in the last episode, you know. Yeah. And Thomas, the only Thomas I could find having to do with Skinwalker Ranch is a gentleman on a new television show, which I'm going to get into here in a second, called The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, it's called, on History Channel. It's a brand new show. He's kind of like a ranch hand, kind of this dude who actually dug on the property and developed a mysterious head condition where he had to go to he was rushed to the hospital in a hospital bed for weeks because his scalp separated from his goddamn skull. And the doctor said that it appeared like a beam of intense energy hit the guy's head, causing the scalp to separate from the skull. That's the only way they could think it happened. That's how that injury would result, is from an energy beam hitting the fucking skull.
What did he dig for?
I forgot what he was doing. They talk about it in the TV.
I mean, something like normal, or as opposed to something.
Yeah, like doing work. And people are like, no, I wouldn't. And his name's Thomas, right? Like the interviewer called. But it doesn't sound like Thomas from what I see in the TV show. So I'm thinking maybe it's Brandon Fugel using an alias of Thomas. Mm-hmm. I don't know, but it was still a great clip. It doesn't sound like Thomas, who had the head injury, who talks in this TV show.
He's okay, though?
Yeah, he's okay now. And the doctors...
Okay,
according to the show, right, the doctors could not figure out what happened. The only thing they could surmise that happened was he was hit by some sort of energy that caused this injury.
I mean, okay, fine. I won't dig then.
I know, right? It's so tempting. But
where's
anyway,
the cutoff, right? But,
yeah. The really cool thing about Brandon Fugel, that's the other thing why I think the person in the clip that you just played is Brandon Fugel, because he's saying how he wants to be, He wants to be correct and upstanding with the county. He wants to do everything legit. And Brandon Fugal, this supposed new owner of Skinwalker Ranch, is a highly respected member of Utah society, right? He's rich. He's famous. He holds many prominent positions, including at some chemical pharmaceutical company trying to develop a cure for coronavirus. I mean, he's held highly. So saying that in the clip makes me even more so think that it's Brandon Fugal talking, but we don't know for sure, right? Now, the really cool thing about Fugal is that for the first time, he's opening up Skinwalker Ranch to the public in the form of this new History Channel show, like I said, called The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. Now, once again, just like with Robert Bigelow, another incredibly wealthy guy is bringing in a team of top-notch scientists to investigate all the claims we just mentioned in this episode. And this research is being shown on television to the world. Never been done before. Now, I'm not going to mention all their findings now, what they're finding on this show. Go and watch it, but here's just a hint. They're capturing some really strange stuff, things in the sky, anomalous readings, things like this. Now, I'm really looking forward to future episodes to see if they can repeatedly document strange phenomena at the ranch, documentation in the form of photos and videos especially. We'll have to wait and see. As of the date of this recording of this show, The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch is only 4 episodes in. So if this topic interests you and you want to know more, the show is really easy to catch up on. You can find it on the History Channel app. Now, here's something cool that the History Channel did as sort of a promotion for this show before it launched. Leading up to the release of the first episode of Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, the History Channel set up a 12-hour live video feed from the ranch and streamed it on YouTube. There were multiple cameras located all over the ranch feeding into this single live feed, and they would change camera views periodically. And some of the cameras had real-time audio and radar sensors on them. So if you were watching this live feed like I did, and you saw something in the video in the sky, you could look at the radar and see if there was, in fact, say, an airplane in the airspace at the time. Now, I didn't watch the entire thing. I don't have that kind of time. But there were a few instances that when I watched where I saw some strange lights in the sky that would appear and then disappear. One series of lights I saw looked like they were arranged like the point of an arrow. And one time I heard an airplane. But interestingly, I didn't hear an airplane when the lights appeared in the sky. So I don't know what it was, what I saw, but I'll leave a link to this 12-hour video feed in this episode show notes. I highly encourage you guys to go and check it out and see if you see anything and let us know. Because like I said, I didn't watch the whole damn thing. It's too long.
Yeah.
So that's what I have on Skinwalker Ranch, man. That's all my research.
It's a lot.
It is a lot. What an enigma! What a fascinating location.
You know, it's the puzzle box from Hellraiser of fucking supernatural activity. You have no idea how to work it. You know what opens what.
What does it does? What's going to come through this time?
Right. You don't know.
Yeah, and for me, those stories of stuff coming through the portal and not going back in, that's frightening, man. What is that shit? If that's true, what is that shit?
To say the least. I mean, that's... It's mind-boggling. I just so much to say, and yet you can't think of what specific to start.
I know, and maybe we don't have to say anything. We've talked about theories. You've gave some excellent theories this episode. Let the listeners decide. What do you guys think is going on in the Uinta Basin and at Skinwalker Ranch? What did you think of our interview? What did you think of the clip Oscar played of that reporter's from Wired, her recording? What else? Didn't we play something else in here?
Yeah, we got the town meeting.
The interview at the town meeting where I think it's Brendan Fugal possibly. What do you think of this stuff? Contact at chicagoghostpodcast.com. Let us know.
Yeah.
Right?
And please, I'm you know what? At this point, it is possible, Jay, that by now there could be someone, even on maybe some low level or a passing glance authority to what's happened or what's happening at Skinwalker or the Uinta Basin is listening to this right now, I mean, we have, you can keyword search and find us as the most recent. I mean, when it comes out, it'll be the most recent episode, talking about this subject. Could be possible that one of them is hearing us. And we would love to know your opinions, just opinions. It doesn't have to be like, you don't have to give us like a photograph or anything like that. We don't, it'd be nice to chat just to see how it feels in your perspective of living
Absolutely.
there. What are people saying about it? And we'll leave your name out of it if you wish. And we could just talk about it in broad terms as to your experiences. That'd be great if you let us know at where?
Contact at chicagoghostpodcast.com, or you can call us 872-529-0767.
Yeah, no, that's a Uinta Basin area code. It's funny, but it's not a real one because we're not living there with you.
Yeah,
we're not
872-529-0767. But if you do have photos, send those too. We'd love to see them.
Oh, yeah. Of course. I mean, obviously, that goes without saying. If you have something and you want to show it, please, that would be awesome.
Yes.
Mainly because if you listen to this show, then please, by all means, listen to our previous shows. If you found us through keyword search, you'll see that we're just legit and we're just trying to logically find out reasons for everything that's happening.
That's right.
And we're very open to everything. We don't judge anything. She just fucking woke up. You saw that?
Yeah, I did see that.
Anyway, yeah. So.
Well, listeners, I hope you enjoyed these 2 Skinwalker episodes. God knows Oscar and I put a ton of work into the episodes.
This is my missing 411 of the year, by the way. This is how fascinating this place is.
Oh, and that was a big 411 was a big one for you.
Big one for me.
Yes.
Big one for me. I had a documentary that I rented here. I haven't seen it yet, though.
Cool.
I'm going to watch that soon.
Well, there we go. I think this episode is long enough.
Yeah.
Covered everything I could possibly think of covering. Gave you some video or audio clips. Patrons have video as well. Oscar, I think we're done here. Take us home.
Let's do it.